How could he expect the Shin musicians to come knocking on his door for revenge? Could it be that the emperor was so confident in himself that he believed that even if the Shin musicians came knocking on his door, they would be completely crushed by him? That's right, that must be it. The Emperor Lord was the only, immortal emperor, in the Shushin continent. The glorious sun swallows the heavens, the leaf fire 9 luminaries, innately able to use divine power. How could such a supreme king be afraid of mere remnants of the Shin musicians? As a result, everyone looks at Di Mingju with more and more reverence. The only people present who could understand Di Mingju's meaning, Elder Chang and Han Yi, can't help but have the corners of their mouths twitch. They dare to use the 10,000 years of prestige of the polar domain to guarantee that the expectation that their Jun Shang speaks of, and what these people are thinking, are absolutely two different things. Chapter 3102. What are you expecting? Of course, you're expecting the Shin musician successor to come knocking for revenge, and then, fight at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end. Elder Chang covers his face and runs away in tears. His family's pure and dignified Jun Shang, when did he become like this? Even he himself has been led astray. Moral integrity and whatnot, it's getting further and further away from him. Di Mingju doesn't care what everyone thinks. After being interrupted again and again to find Mayan, his impatience has accumulated to the extreme. This time, he doesn't even wait for Yu Yanran to speak again. He simply doesn't choose to ride his sword. Instead, he takes a step forward with Xiao Bao in his arms, and his figure instantly disappears. Tearing through space, shrinking the earth to inches. Di Jun. Yu Yanran lets out a heart-wrenching cry, rushing forward to stop him. However, what he caught was only an empty space. She stands there in a daze, her hands suddenly clenching into fists. The sorrow and pain in her heart make her eyes redden again, and her body can't stop trembling, on the verge of collapse. Miss! Are you all right? Huang Shouchuan nervously supports her, his face full of worry. Seeing the heartbroken expression on Yu Yanran's face, Huang Shouchuan's chest bursts with anger. He abruptly turns to look at Elder Chang and the others, saying sternly, "The polar domain is evading the important and dwelling on the trivial regarding the eradication of the Shin musicians. They're not trying to shield the remaining Shin musicians, are they?" Elder Chang is roused by Huang Shouchuan's questioning, finally recovering from the tears of self-doubt and lack of moral integrity. Seeing that the bad-tempered Star Wolf is about to rush forward to reason, he promptly pulls him back. Revealing a kind smile, Deputy Island Master Huang, whether or not the remaining Shin musicians have already matured, whether or not they will bring disaster to the Shushin continent, no one knows right now. But one thing is very clear. This time, the pillars of heaven collapsed, the calamity of the poltergeist ghosts. If it wasn't for the sudden descent of the miracle of the 9 stars and the moon, would all of us here still be safe and sound? What kind of situation would the Shushin continent fall into? As soon as these words come out, everyone present quivers. In their minds, they can't help but recall the frightening and almost invincible rank 6 poltergeist ghosts. If it wasn't for the 9 stars and the moon, if it wasn't for that rain that fell from the sky and healed all of them, would they still be alive? The answer was obviously yes. For a moment, the remnants of the Shin musicians are all thrown to the back of his mind. After all, the sky-toppling disaster was right in front of them, and every one of them had personally experienced it. That kind of fear and powerlessness, as well as the ecstasy of suddenly grasping hope in a hopeless situation, even now, when he thought about it, his heart still thumped non-stop. As for the calamity of the Shin musicians, it's been 1,000 years and everyone's impression of it has faded. There were even more people whose cultivation levels were too low 1,000 years ago and did not have the qualifications to participate in the war at all. So at this time, it was far less memorable than the sky-toppling disaster that had just ended. Elder Chang was very satisfied with everyone's reaction. He continued, the 9 stars and moon appeared right after the spirit clock. Is there any connection between the two? Was it triggered by the same person? If the person who triggered the 9 stars and moon and saved all of our lives is really the successor of the Shin musicians. Yet, everyone killed him indiscriminately. Isn't this too ungrateful? However, the spirit cultivators did not react to Elder Chang's words. The demonic cultivators were already shouting and yelling. Cruel and unscrupulous. Burning the bridge after crossing the river. He's too much. Chapter 3103. Ha ha ha, these spirit cultivators are a bunch of sanctimonious hypocrites. It's not surprising that he would do such a thing. After the battle ended, Jun Shirtian led the Devil Race army and left. On the Netherrealm side, Yin Yuanith suddenly fainted at the end of the battle, either because he was frightened or because he was injured by the poltergeist ghosts. At this time, even though Yuchen already looked down on this young master, seeing him like this, he still nervously brought his people back to the Netherrealm. Thus, at this moment, the majority of the people left above the hidden abyss were spirit cultivators who were loyal to the polar domain, as well as devil cultivators who were purely here to watch the fun. The demon race believed that the strong were respected, and their fists spoke. He had a straightforward personality and did not like to scheme. He doesn't have much ill will towards the Shin musicians who completely destroyed the major sects of the Shushan continent 1,000 years ago. On the contrary, he and the spirit cultivators have always been incompatible like fire and water. Therefore, when he heard Elder Chang's words, he immediately seized the opportunity to mock him. Cough, cough, Elder Chang coughed twice, interrupting the devil cultivators shouting. He said in all seriousness, that's why my polar domain isn't in a hurry to declare our position. Naturally, we don't want to become ungrateful people. I believe that Deputy Island Master Huang should understand this, right? Huang Shouchuan's expression was somewhat ugly. His question was easily avoided by Elder Chang. Moreover, Elder Chang's words have given the remaining Shin musicians a good impression. If in the future it is proven that the 9 stars and the moon is caused by the remnants of the Shin musicians, I'm afraid that these people will instead treat that slut as a benefactor. Huang Shouchuan gritted his teeth and said, using small favors to buy people's hearts is the Shin musicians' usual method. Small favors. Before Elder Chang could reply, a fiendish cultivator shouted, why don't you show us some of these small favors? TSK, I saw that they were in a very sorry state just now. They even used their own subordinates as shields. If not for the appearance of the 9 stars and moon, they would have long since become bait for the nightmare ghosts. That's why I said. Spirit cultivators are all shameless. They've just received a favor from others, and now they're turning against them. Huang Shouchuan's face alternated between green and white. Yu Yanran's lips also trembled, and she was so ashamed and furious that she wished for nothing more than to fling her sleeves and leave immediately. Because right now, it wasn't just the demons who were mocking them. Even many spirit cultivators stole suspicious glances at them. Ba. Jing Yuan suddenly said, just as almsgiver Chang said. This time, with the collapse of the pillars of heaven, if all the living beings in the world were really saved by the remnants of the Shin musicians, then it would be hard to explain the grudges between them. His voice paused and he frowned slightly, as if he was at a loss and in a difficult position. But this poor monk has heard Master speak of the calamity of the Shin musicians. It is by no means an ordinary disaster. If the remnants of the Shin musicians are really, Elder, Jing Yuan of Shen, elder of them. Elder, Jing, of Master, of Li of Li Fu. But if the remnants of the Shin musicians really bring disaster to the Shushan continent and harm innocent lives, my polar domain will not stand idly by. Of Chang, and, the crowd, cultivators of Chang of. Jing Yuan's face also shows a relieved expression. His originally kind and dignified face is now tainted with the shyness and clarity of a young man. Then, this poor monk can rest assured. Only Han Yi, Ying Mei, and Xing Lang couldn't help but glance at the awe-inspiring righteousness of Elder Chang and roll their eyes. Chapter 3104. Dupe. You keep duping. With their Jun Shang's love for his wife and henpecked, if the polar domain really attacks the Shin musicians, then they can only wait to be locked up in the purgatory pool. Oh, maybe they can even sneak a peek and see their Jun Shang kneeling on the golden Bodhi fruit. Xiuxian continent, polar domain. Di Mingju holds Xiao Bao and steps into the Qiankuan mirror. The room lights up with a sparkling light, and the entire space appears to be slightly distorted. However, after a moment, the sparkling light dissipates. Di Mingju and Xiao Bao still stay in the room. The Qiankuan mirror in front of them has already lost its luster, turning into the most ordinary mirror. Di Mingju's complexion is ashen. Xiao Bao looks at him worriedly. Daddy, what happened? Can't we see Nyangqin? Di Mingju takes a deep breath, and it takes a long while to suppress his surging emotions. He says in a low voice, Xiao Bao will first go sleep in Daddy's portable space. When you wake up, Daddy will take you to see Nyangqin. Even though Xiao Bao was filled with worry, he still nodded obediently. When Di Mingju puts him into the portable space, he suddenly grabs Di Mingju's hand. His big ice blue eyes stare at him without blinking. Xiao Bao wants Nyangqin to be well, and also wants Daddy to be well. Daddy, don't get hurt again, okay? Otherwise Nyangqin and Xiao Bao will be distressed. Di Mingju stares blankly for a while, before revealing a soft smile, okay. After Xiao Bao enters the portable space, Di Mingju shouts, come. Have sunglasses Qing roll to see Ben Jun. In Lingxiao Hall, a man wearing a gorgeous robe is trembling with fear as he kneels in front of Di Mingju. He can't wait to knock his head into the cracks of the bluestone bricks. Di Mingju looks at him coldly. Speak, what's going on? The man coughs softly, and shakily raises his head. This person has a square face, thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his facial features are masculine and handsome. But the problem is, with this kind of appearance, he's wearing clothes as gorgeous as a peacock's. His face is also smeared with a thick layer of powder, directly painting his originally bronze skin to be as pale as a ghost's. Coupled with his thick, black, sword-like eyebrows and thick lips, he looked extremely comical. However, this person seemed to be completely unaware of his strange appearance and clothing. He had to show off his elegant and unrestrained demeanor with every move he made. Even if he was now in fear and trepidation, he had to make sure that his kneeling posture was perfect and flawless, showing off the elegance of a distinguished scholar. My lord, this matter is a little complicated. Please allow this subordinate to explain it to you in detail. Di Mingju, make it short. Lord, you may not know this, but the situation is complicated. It really can't be done in a short time. This subordinate will first analyze the 5 possible hypotheses for you, in addition to the 12 derivations. Di Mingju's cold voice doesn't fluctuate. Drag him down and feed him to the Harkin. Wait a minute. Sunglasses Qing finally panicked. He threw all the distinguished and distinguished persona to the back of his mind. He quickly said in a loud voice, there's a problem with the passage between the Xiuxian continent and the Xiuxian continent. We can't go anymore. What do you mean by you can't go? Elder Chang and the others, who had just entered the hall, heard Sunglasses Chang's words. They don't even pay their respects to Di Mingju, and can't help but wonder, the Qiankuan mirror is a holy object. Even if there are any fluctuations in the space passage, the Qiankuan mirror can still protect us through. Chapter 3105. What's more, with Lord's current cultivation, even if you don't rely on the heaven and earth mirror, if you want to go to the cultivation continent, you'll at most consume a little divine essence. Why can't I leave? Sunglasses Ching flicked his sleeves and shook his head with a look of disdain. I've said to make it short. You won't understand. Let me explain in detail. In the middle of his sentence, he gave God a cold look. Sunglasses Ching immediately shrunk his neck and immediately changed his words. Someone closed the one-way passage between the Shushan continent and the other continents. Impossible. Who can do it? It's impossible for anyone to do it. Sunglasses Ching coughs lightly. If you want to close the passage of the space barrier with your bare hands, then of course, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Even if it's Jun Shang, I'm afraid that you won't be able to do it. However, with the help of a holy artifact, it would be a different story. If I were to do it, there would be at least 5 methods with a 100% success rate and 12 methods with a 60% success rate. Star Wolf said unhappily, King Shua, what nonsense are you saying? In the entire Shushan continent, there is only one space treasure of the saint level, and that is our polar domain's treasure, the heaven and earth mirror. Sunglasses Ching was the palace lord of the Tianshua Palace in the polar domain, and all the previous palace lords of the Tianshua Palace were called King Shua. Just as Star Wolf finished speaking, he himself did not notice. Han Yi, Ying Mei, defeating armies, and Elder Chang all have their complexions change. He could use the universe mirror to close the spatial barrier. That meant that this person was definitely within the polar domain. Moreover, his status in the polar domain was definitely not low. Otherwise, he would be discovered by the Imperial Guards as soon as he got close to the universe mirror. Elder Chang suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "Where's Diding? Every time Lord leaves the polar domain, he will get Truth Listener to monitor the entire mountain domain. It's impossible for Truth Listener to not notice someone approaching the cosmic mirror, right?" Upon hearing this, Sunglasses Ching restrained the teasing expression on his face and slowly said, "Sometime after the 9 stars and moon phenomenon appeared, Truth Listener suddenly became extremely irritable. I wanted to appease it, but it was completely useless. During that time, the polar domain was out of the range of Diding's surveillance. Later, after the Truth Listener calmed down, I communicated with it with my divine sense to tell it what had happened. It said that it heard a sound, like the sound of a piano or a flute, and then it lost consciousness. I think that if someone wanted to use the universe mirror to close the spatial barrier passage, it would definitely be at that time." Elder Chang and the others looked extremely grim. Be it controlling Truth Listener or approaching the cosmic mirror. One thing was certain. This person was definitely in the polar domain, and his status was certainly not low. Elder Chang frowned and asked, "But why did you close the spatial barrier?" In fact, there aren't many people from the Shushan continent who want to go to the Shushan continent or the Yanwu continent. And for the people of the Shushan continent and the Yanwu continent to come up, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Even if they closed the spatial barrier, what was the use? Sunglasses Ching suddenly said faintly, "The people of the Shushan continent can't go down, but the people of the Shushan continent can come up. Furthermore, there is only one entrance that connects to the cultivation continent's heavenly tribulation stairway." Elder Chang's eyelids twitched as a thought flashed through his mind. Miss June. Someone wanted to capture Miss June. Chapter 3106. Elder Chang's voice almost screams, but he thinks of June Mayan's special identity, and that Sunglasses Ching is still at the scene. He forcibly swallows back the words that are on the tip of his tongue. The power distribution under the polar domain imperial family was extremely heterogeneous. Sunglasses Chang's surname was Mo, so he was naturally part of the royal family. It's just that Di Mingju is different from the other members of the imperial family who once fought to the death with Di Mingju. From start to finish, Sunglasses Cheng has supported Di Mingju to become a polar domain plant. He and his Tianshuo palace have always been loyal and devoted to Di Mingju. But Jun Mayan's identity is really too sensitive. Even if the sunglasses were complete, Elder Chang would not dare to reveal anything to him. At this time, Di Mingju coldly says, "No matter what method you use, within 6 hours, open a new passage." Ben Jun wants to go to the Shuzhen continent. Sunglasses Ching stared blankly, then his whole face twitched and twisted. "Jun Shang, are you joking with me?" Di Mingju looks at him expressionlessly. No, that's impossible. Do you know how terrifying the changes in energy laws are in the void where the spatial rampart is located? Of course, it's possible to open a new passage, but it requires a huge amount of calculation and energy sorting. Give me 3 months. Di Mingju looks at him faintly, then says, "It only took them 4 hours to control Di Ting to approach the cosmic mirror and close the spatial barrier passage. I'll give you 6 hours, but you won't be able to do it. Are you admitting that you're weaker than others in the law of space?" Fuck. How is this possible? Sunglasses Cheng smashed the ground and fiercely jumped up. Damn, in terms of the law of space, if I, your father, claim to be number 1, no one will dare to claim to be number 2. 6 hours is 6 hours, Di Mingju, just you wait. Elder Chang and the others couldn't help but laugh as they watched the sunglasses leaving like a whirlwind. Goading Prince Shuo was forever effective. However, Di Mingju, who is sitting in the seat of honor, tightly clenches his hands. 6 hours. It had been too long. Yen, you have to wait for me. You absolutely cannot cross the tribulation and ascend at this time. I can't come to the Shushan continent now. The night was as black as ink. On the bank of the River of Forgetfulness in the Nether Realm, a figure silently landed on the ground and knelt down towards the tall figure standing in front of him. "Greetings, Priest Lu Yun." The newcomer raised his head and handed over a letter, respectfully saying, "There's news from the polar domain. The matter that his lordship ordered has been completed." Mu Luyun took the letter and scanned it with his divine sense. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. In the next moment, a flame burst out from his fingertip and burned the letter into ashes. "Have you arranged the people to wait at the entrance of the stairway?" The person on the ground hurriedly said, "Priest, please rest assured. Everything has been arranged according to the master's arrangements. Within 6 hours, as long as someone ascends from the cultivation continent and ascends to the heaven stairway, they won't be able to escape from us." Mu Luyun nodded. Then, he looked up at the starless and moonless sky. The dazzling scene of the 9 stars and moon appeared in his mind. The glorious sun swallows the heavens, the 9 stars link to the moon, the cold jade scarlet crow, the flowing light for 10,000 li. This person is definitely related to Di Mingju, or perhaps she is the person who can change the fate of Di Mingju and the 3 realms. In any case, we can't let her meet Di Mingju. If his lordship can't use her, it would be better to destroy her. Mu Luyun said in a low voice. He suddenly took out an arrayed disc and gently fiddled with it. Chapter 3107. 1 second. Remember LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Mu Luyun says in a low voice, suddenly taking out an arrayed disc and gently fiddling with it. His brows sometimes relax and sometimes frown, revealing an extremely puzzled look. "Priest, what are you still worried about?" The subordinate asks cautiously. "You previously divined that a heavenly tribulation would soon descend on the Shuzhen continent, and either destroy or ascend. It's fine if that person dies under the heavenly tribulation, but even if he's lucky enough to ascend, we have already closed all the other passages, leaving only this entrance to the heaven stairway. If this person ascends, he absolutely won't be able to escape our palm. Yes, he shouldn't be able to escape our palm. Mu Luyan murmurs, it's impossible, there are other variables, Xiuzhen continent, Fengtian mountain range. Two figures turn into flaming sword shadows in the air. From time to time, the sword energy explodes, turning the Fengtian mountain range into a scene of devastation. The vicious beasts that originally lived in the mountain range have long since fled without a trace. In the sky, Mu Yen steps, lotus-blooming steps, and her figure gradually turns into 7, surrounding Ningxu. Flowing sword shadow. With one move, the 7 absolute swords in the hands of the 7 shadows instantly transform into sword shadows that fill the sky, covering Ningxu in an overwhelming manner. The intermittent sound of the zither keeps ringing between heaven and earth. At this moment, all the Shin musician skills are combined and applied to the extreme. Ningxu is surrounded by a sky full of sword rain, but there's no trace of panic on his face. Instead, the corner of his mouth hooks up in a mocking arc. Just as the sword light is about to fall, he suddenly opens his mouth and lets out a ruthless howl. Shattering ghost cry. An ear-piercing whistle suddenly resounds, causing the figures of the 7 sword-wielding girls to suddenly stop, their faces revealing a pained expression. More than half of the sword light that originally fell like an inescapable net is instantly shattered. On the other end of the Fengtian mountain range, the vicious beasts and birds that haven't escaped in time are all wailing in pain. They fall to the ground, bleeding from their 7 orifices. Countless snakes, insects, rats, and ants roll out of the ground, eventually turning into corpses. At the foot of the mountain, Yun Ruhan and the other 5 have pained expressions, frantically operating their spiritual power, struggling to hold on. But they feel as if their eardrums and internal organs are about to burst. Fortunately, at this moment, the melodious sound of a zither could be heard. In an instant, a wall of sound was created to protect them. The 6 of them heaved a sigh of relief. From above, Ningxu let out a cold laugh. You're fighting against me, and you still have the mood to care about the life and death of others. Jun Mayan, are you looking down on me? As soon as he finished speaking, Ningxu suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. Mu Yen immediately wants to retreat. However, what Ningxu's palm brought with it was not a suction force, but a thunderous impact that was like a huge wave crashing onto a table. Flying palm. Mu Yen felt a bone-piercing pain in her chest, and her whole body flew out. Ningxu's figure had already disappeared from his original spot. The demon-slaying sword was raised in the air, waiting for her to walk right into the trap and pierce through her heart. Be careful, junior sister. The members of the Xiaoyao sect didn't even have time to adjust their breathing. However, Mu Yan's flying speed was getting faster and faster, and he couldn't control it at all. Seeing that the sword was about to pierce through his back, Ningxu's hand trembled slightly. However, in the next moment, a ray of sword light whistled and exploded. Puchi! The sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh rang out almost at the same time. The 2 figures collided in the air, and then passed by each other. Mu Yen held the 7 absolute sword in her hand, blood dripping from the tip of the sword. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 3108. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, to provide you with exciting reading. Mu Yen holds the 7 absolute sword, blood dripping from the tip of the sword. The dried bloodstains on his back were now stained with fresh red. Ningxu pressed one hand on the left side of his abdomen and looked at the girl in front of him with a complicated expression. Even if he advanced to the tribulation stage, he would only be a hollow immortal. But now, this void immortal had actually injured him. Jun Mayan, how good would it be if you didn't have Jun Shiyuan's bloodline? I will bring you back to the Ning family and make you the young miss of the Ning family that everyone holds in their palms. Mu Yan was slightly gasping for breath, her face was deathly pale. Just now, when she had injured Ning Su, she had used the last of her 3 self-created swords, destruction of jade and stone. Injuring the enemy is injuring oneself. However, even though she had paid such a huge price, it was still not a fatal injury to Ning Su. Just how strong was Ning Su? If it wasn't for the suppression of the heavenly Tao laws in the cultivation continent, he probably wouldn't even be able to last 15 minutes against him. Hearing Ning Su's words, she revealed a mocking expression. I don't know where your so-called Ning family is, but I don't even have the slightest interest in acknowledging such a stubborn and inhumane family. Ning Su closed his eyes and chuckled softly. Looks like I've only unsealed a third of my strength. It's not enough to kill you. What about unlocking half of the seal? The demon slayer vibrated violently, emitting a buzzing sound. Ning Su's eyes turned red. His black cloak swelled up, and the bamboo hat on his head had already shattered and disappeared. Only his black hair danced in the wind. Every strand of black hair was entwined with an enormous amount of energy that surpassed the limits of this world. They were like massive pythons that would pounce over at any moment to devour everything before them. Mu Yan clenches the 7 absolute sword in her hand. For the first time, he felt the despair and helplessness of being completely suppressed. Let's go help little junior sister. Leng Yuma gritted her teeth. I know we're very weak, and even if we go, we might just be a burden to little junior sister, but I feel that little junior sister needs us now. Peak astral projection, especially the 7 unfettered disciples. In the cultivation continent, he was truly an invincible existence. Even Chu Xinyan and Jing Tianyi, who were experts on the Azure Sky Roll, were powerless in front of them. But facing Ning Su, this immortal of unknown origin and identity, they didn't even have to fight against him, but they already felt hopeless and powerless. But no matter how desperate they are, they can't just stand idly by knowing Mayan's suffering. Alright, let's go help little junior sister. Even though she had promised Mayan in the beginning that this was her fight alone. Even though they might not be able to help at all. However, Yun Ruhan still quickly made a decision. Only the immobile Chu Moli stayed behind. The other 5 people rushed into the sky without hesitation, and sped towards the direction where Mu Yan and Ning Su were fighting. The closer they got to the battlefield, the pressure from the demon-slaying sword was suffocating. The 5 of them gritted their teeth and silently approached. Just as they were about to enter the center of the battlefield, Yun Ruhan waved her hand, indicating for everyone to disperse. They did not have the ability to influence the outcome of the battle. But at least he could go all out to harass Ning Su and create an opportunity for his junior sister. However, at this moment, Yun Ruhan's heart skipped a beat. There was an extremely bad premonition that suddenly welled up in his heart. He seemed to have forgotten a very important thing. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 3109. Remember LoveNet in 1 second, providing you with exciting reading. Haha, ha 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 ha, a bone-chilling laughter rang out in the dark night. Luo Yu did not have time to react. He felt an ice-cold hand silently caressing his neck, causing goosebumps to appear all over his body. Shao Qi, be careful. Yun Ruhan roared. The Ice Soul Sword turned into a cold light and shot towards Luo Yu's back. But he was still a step too late. Ha ha ha. Your Highness, you'd better not act rashly. The little prince is in my hands now. If you take another step, don't blame me for breaking the little prince's neck. The 4 of them stopped in their tracks and looked over. Under the dim light of the night, A short, ugly man dressed in a blue robe with his hair combed neatly was holding Luo Yu's neck with his dark, slender, ghostly claw-like hands. His fingertips carelessly slid and immediately pierced the skin on Luo Yu's neck. Blood flowed out of the wound and instantly turned purple. His nails were poisonous. Yun Ruhan said sternly, "Gue Ci, if you dare to hurt Xiao Qi, I will tear you into pieces." "Ha ha ha. Your Highness, why are you so angry? In the little prince's body is the base soul pearl that the imperial advisor wants the most. Unless I have no other choice, how could I bear to kill my beloved little prince?" Yun Ruhan gritted her teeth. "What do you want?" He, ha ha ha, so many years have passed. Your Highness has been reincarnated and even your personality has changed. You don't look like the host of the Nightmare Ghost at all. But his loyalty to the little prince hasn't changed at all. Gue Ci's laughter became even more ear-piercing. Although your Highness has a mortal body and can no longer summon the Nightmare Ghost, I can't be at ease. If you want to save the little prince's life, please break your own arms first. I can only be at ease if your Highness is unable to make hand seals and summon. Dream on. Luo Yu roared, the spiritual power in his body surging wildly. But Gue Ci seemed to have predicted Luo Yu's actions. Soul Reaper Chain appeared in an instant. Luo Yu screamed in pain. Her body lit up with a strange light. The soul orb that was about to float out of her body was forcefully pushed back. Keek, the soul-detaining chain, was specially prepared by the Spirit Master for you, little prince. This little one has patiently waited here for so long, just for this one fatal strike. Keek, your Highness, are you ready? Either you break your own arms, or you watch as your beloved brother is tortured to death in my hands. Damn it. This old lady will fight it out with you. Ling Yuma raised her red lotus soul-stealing blade and was about to slash down. Stop! Yun Ruhan roared. Almost as soon as his voice fell, the soul-restraining chain lit up with a dazzling light. A bloody mist exploded from Luo Yu's body and her clothes were dyed red with blood. The extreme pain caused his face to contort, but he bit his lips tightly. Even when blood seeped out from the corner of his lips, he refused to let out a single groan. However, Ling Yuma suddenly retracted her saber. Because she retracted her saber too quickly, the spiritual power backfired and she felt a sharp pain in her chest. But how could this pain compare to the hatred she felt when she saw her little brother being tortured? Seeing their reactions, Phantom Sting laughed even more wildly. TSK, your Highness really knows me well. I've been holed up in this damn place where I can't cultivate for a whole 15 years. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 31:10. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. I don't have the slightest bit of patience left. It's fine if you listen obediently, but if you continue to obstruct me, I will let you die. All of you will die without a burial ground. Gue Ci takes a deep breath, slowly straightening his distorted face. So your Highness, don't test my patience anymore. Quickly do as I say, otherwise, just wait to see the little prince cut into pieces by the soul-arresting chains. Eldest brother, you can't. Luo Yu's voice is hoarse and trembling, carrying a desperate plea. He hopes that eldest brother won't care about him this time. He hopes to die like this and not become a burden to eldest brother. But deep in his heart, he knows that it's impossible. He doesn't have any memories from more than 10 years ago. But in these 15 years, he has always known how eldest brother has guarded and protected him. Like a pearl or a treasure, better than life. Sure enough, the man in front of him puts away the long sword in his hand, revealing a gentle and elegant smile. Neither servile nor overbearing, a gentleman with proper manners, but tolerant and protective of every junior brother and sister in the sect. Fine, I promise you. Mayan hears the sound and turns to look. She realizes that something terrible is about to happen. However, she is only slightly distracted. There's a sharp pain in her left shoulder. Ning Su's voice is bone-chilling. At a time like this, you still have the mind to worry about others. Mayan uses a backhand to block the demon-slaying sword, saying sternly, Ning Su, you said that this is a fight that only belongs to the two of us. But you actually despicably arranged such a trap to lay your hands on my fellow disciples. Ning Su furrowed his brows and said with a cold smile, after killing you, killing these people is like crushing ants to me. Arrange a trap. Jun Mayan, you think too highly of your Xiaoyao school. Saying that, Ning Su's gaze still turns to Gui Ci. Cold and disgusted. He can fight Jun Mayan to the death. But he doesn't want Jun Mayan to misunderstand that he's using despicable and insidious means. Gui Ci is stared at by Ning Su's cold gaze, and he can't help but feel a chill down his spine. He comes from the floating island. He knew better than anyone how powerful, cruel, and terrifying this Ning family direct descendant was. Gui Ci's voice trembled. Young Master Ning, the state preceptor wants me to greet you. I would never dare to covet the prey that you want, but Yun Ruhan and Lan Luoyu are people that the state preceptor wants to bring back. If we offended young Master Ning, please forgive us. The imperial tutor said that another day, he will bring the imperial family's treasure and personally visit the Ning family to apologize. At this time, Phantom Sting's words were intermittent and trembling. He no longer had the perverted arrogance from before. Ning Su snorts coldly, and finally no longer pays attention to him. The demon-slaying sword once again attacks Mayan. Sword chi overflowed. Affected by the sword aura of the demon-slaying sword, the doppelganger of layers of phantom came to a halt. The lotus steps, under Mu Yan's feet paused. The demon-slaying sword once again left a wound on her body that was so deep that the bone could be seen. Ning Su said coldly as he closed in on Mu Yan. From the very beginning, you fell out with me because of this Yun Ruhan. Regardless of whether he dies here or has his arms chopped off, he only has himself to blame. All evil spirits should die. Hearing Ning Su's words, Gui Ci's heart, which had almost jumped to his throat, finally calmed down. Once again, he laughed maniacally. Chapter 31:11. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, to provide you with exciting reading. Phantom Sting's face was distorted with extreme excitement. Your Highness, no one will interrupt us now. Come on, break your own arms. You don't need a sword, you only need to explode your spiritual power to shatter the flesh and bones of your arms. I think you can do such a simple thing. Ha ha ha, eldest brother. Stop. Tears welled up in Luo Yu's eyes as she growled in a low voice, No, eldest senior brother, please don't. Yun Ruhan took a deep breath and smiled at Luo Yu as usual. Shao Qi, don't be afraid. I'm here. Phantom Sting looked at Yun Ruhan excitedly, waiting for the moment when the summoner of Nightmare Ghost, known as the Killing God, was called a cripple in front of him. However, at this moment, a sharp whistle sounded in Phantom Sting's ears. Then, he felt his body being ruthlessly knocked away, and a sharp pain suddenly came from his arm. Ah! Phantom Sting let out a blood-curdling scream. When he came back to his senses, he discovered that his arm, which was holding onto the soul-arresting chain, had been chopped off. At his waist, there was a pair of hands hugging him tightly. This pair of hands was holding a dagger dipped in poison. It circled around to his back and stabbed deep into him. Damn it! Gui Ci shouted angrily. Without even looking at the person who was hugging him, he raised his hand and slammed it down on the top of the person's head. Puff! A line of blood shot at Phantom Thorn's waist. The hands that were hugging him finally drooped down powerlessly. Sly Thrust kicked the person away. Only then did he angrily go to see who it was. He really didn't expect that he would be sneak attacked by a mere cultivator from the cultivation continent. Moss. Master, Yun Ruhan and the others hadn't expected the situation to change so suddenly. The five of them didn't even have time to see who it was before they saw Phantom Sting's arm get chopped off. When the man was kicked away by the Phantom Thorn, they finally saw his face. Shurqing. It was the sect leader of the Xiaoyao school, the master of the seven of them, Shurqing. Master. For the first time, fear and helplessness appeared on Yun Ruhan's usually calm face. He scrambled over and supported Shurqing's blood-covered body. Master! Master! Aside from Mu Yen, who was fighting with Ning Su, everyone else from the Xiaoyao school gathered around. Luo Yute struggled to break free from the soul-restraining chains. Every inch of her meridians and skin was burning with pain. However, he didn't even have the time to swallow a pill as he hurriedly stumbled over. Looking at Shurqing, whose skull was shattered and whose brain juice was flowing all over his face. Luo Yu only felt a buzzing sound in her head. Everything became blank. Master! Master, don't scare me, Sixth Senior Sister, yes, wait for Sixth Senior Sister, wait for her to save you. Sixth Senior Sister is so powerful, she can definitely save you. In the sky, Mu Yen clenched his teeth and plucked the zither strings, transforming into a clone. However, as soon as this clone appeared, he was defeated by Ning Su's sword. Mu Yen suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood, her body on the verge of collapse. Her eyes were bloodshot as she looked at Ning Su, almost begging, "Give me some time, let me save my master first. Just give me 2 hours, no, an hour. Just give me the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, just give me the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." Chapter 31:12. Go to hell. Mu Yen fiercely slashed out with the 7 absolute swords in her hands, one strike after another, without any pattern, but like a crazy demon. Ning Su, I swear. If anything happens to my master today, I will never forgive you. One day, I will make you pay with your blood. I will make your Ning family restless. Ning Su laughed coldly, that depends on whether you can survive from my hands. Your Highness. Shurqing grabbed Luo Yu who was about to replace Mu Yen. Your Highness, please listen to this old official. This old official has already suffered a fatal injury on the floating island. Since then, I have been unable to cultivate, and simply cannot live for more than a few years. I have been struggling at death's door because I can't let go of you and your Highness. This old official knows, those who wanted to kill you 15 years ago, still have survived. As long as they are still alive, your whereabouts will be exposed to the state preceptor. This old subject is alive to give them the final fatal blow. Almost at the same time, Gue Ci suddenly shouted in horror, "What poison did you smear on the dagger? What poison is this?" They turned their heads to look. They saw that the wound on Gue Ci's waist was actually burning with a purple flame. And this flame spread extremely fast, covering more than half of Gue Ci's body in a flash. Shurqing's breathing was already weak, but seeing this scene, he still laughed out loud, Gue Ci. I was like a dog, begging to live under Chu Xinyan's hands, even willing to let the world know that I am a beast who betrayed his disciple. Why do you think I did this? I have been waiting for you. This dagger smeared with purple apex fire, I've been preparing it for you for 15 years. Are you surprised? Surprised? Ha 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 ha. Purple apex fire, You are sure Yuanqing? Sure Yuanqing, you are still alive. Gui Ci screamed loudly, using purple apex fire in the Xiuzhen continent. Do you not want to live? Oh! As Phantom Sting shouted, the purple flame instantly engulfed his entire body, leaving only a pile of dust on the ground. Shiqing's eyes became more and more unfocused. The hand that held the dagger was also burning with the same purple flame. Master! Ling Yuma and the others hurriedly clapped their hands. However, when his hand landed on the purple flame, he didn't feel any warmth at all. It was as if he had touched an illusory object and directly passed through it. However, the flames on Shiqing's body were rising higher and higher, gradually covering more than half of his body. Just by looking at Phantom Sting's pained expression, one could imagine how painful it was to be engulfed by the purple apex fire. However, Shiqing revealed a gratified smile. Don't cry. Our carefree sect doesn't like this kind of mushy farewell. Master has been troubled by his old wounds for more than 10 years. Now that he's free, you should be happy for him. The 5 of them had tears streaming down their cheeks. Even Chu Moli, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was tightly gripping the armrest, his eyes completely red. Your First Highness, you must protect the Little Highness in the future. Yun Ruhan grabbed Shiqing's hand, her tears falling like rain, but she couldn't say a word. Shiqing then looked at Luoyu. Little Highness, I can only protect you until now. In the future, you must take care. Chapter 31:13. Remember LoveNet in 1 second, providing you with exciting reading. What prince? What prince? What Lon Empire? What does any of this have to do with me? At this moment, Luoyu finally exploded. His tears fell like rain as he screamed, I don't want revenge, I don't want to find my past, I don't want anyone to die for me. I just want to be happy in the carefree sect and be your little 7. Master. Xiaoqi, please don't die, okay? From the moment Xiaoqi opened his eyes, there were only you and senior brothers and sisters. To Xiaoqi, you are master, father, and the most important family. Xiaoqi can't live without you. Turbid tears rolled down Shiqing's face. He reached out his trembling hand and touched Luoyu's head. His voice was soft, Xiaoqi, your master Xiaoqi, you have to live well in the future. Even if you don't get rich, even if you don't have a bright future, you have to be safe and happy, master. A blood-red figure suddenly fell from the sky and rushed to Shiqing. Mu Yan grabbed Shiqing's arm with her blood-stained hand and said hoarsely, Master, don't close your eyes, please don't close your eyes. I'm here to save you. I can save millions of people, and I can definitely save you. Shiqing's eyelids trembled heavily, and there seemed to be a faint smile on his face. Xiao Yanyan, don't cry. I've been very happy in my life, to have you 7, as my disciples, to have the Xiaoyao sect, but my greatest fortune is to have you enter the Xiaoyao sect during the sect selection. Because of you, the Xiaoyao sect has new hope. Xiao Yanyan, promise me to live well, the 7 of you, and your junior master, live well, together, this life and this night will not last long, to be free and unfettered forever. So good. So good, when the white light rises, purple flames instantly engulfed Shiqing's body. Along with the smile on his face and his hoarse and gentle voice. The world suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Master, Luoyu murmured softly and reached his hand to the ground. It was covered with a layer of white ash. Master. Don't scare Xiaoqi, drip drip drip. It was the blood flowing from Mu Yan and Luoyu's bodies. It was the tears that fell from their eyes. There was nothing left. The master who would drink wine every day, ride a donkey, and call them obedient disciples with a smile, was gone. Not even his bones were left. Master! Mu Yan's body swayed, and she could no longer support herself. She fell into a pool of blood with a bang. Her back was a bloody mess that was so deep that the bones could be seen. In the sky, Ning Su looked expressionlessly at the fallen girl, his eyes cold and heartless. But for some reason, a teardrop silently slid down from the corner of his eye. Hee hee, hee hee hee. Sure Yuan Qing, you old thing. He should have been dead long ago on the floating island, in the northern continent's unclean abyss, but he's actually lingering on his last breath until now. How dare you scheme against me? You made me suffer the pain of being burned by the purple apex flames, and destroyed the puppet body that I spent so much effort to cultivate. Yun Ruhan turned around abruptly. He was shocked to find that Creepy Thorn's figure was slowly emerging from the ashes. But compared to his previous arrogance, Creepy Thorn's face was deathly pale. Meeting their horrified gazes, Creepy Thorn let out a sharp laugh. Do you think I'll die so easily? Chapter 31:14. You're just a bunch of ordinary cultivators from the cultivation continent. A useless old man with a broken dantian wants to kill me. Stop dreaming. Ha ha ha. Luo Yute slowly stood up, his eyes red. He walked towards Phantom Sting step by step, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile like that of an Azura from hell. It's great that you're not dead. He raised his hands and waved them in the air. In a split second, the mountain wind howled, and countless rocks, grass, trees, and skeletons flew over, forming a dense puppet formation. Triple Mirror Realm was activated. Yun Ruhan took out her Ice Soul Sword and went behind Gue Ci to block his way. Triple Mountain Sea Realm was activated. The Ice Soul Sword slashed across the sky and formed an ice wall. Gue Ci, it would be too easy for you if I let you die so easily. Ling Yuma wiped the tears from her eyes and unsheathed her red lotus soul-stealing saber. A blazing flame rose from her back and bloomed into a dazzling red lotus in the air. The red lotuses bloomed one after another, and the scorching flames spread out. It was like the fire of hell. No one could escape. Triple Blazing Sun Realm was activated. We want you to die without a burial place. Ling Yuxing opened his hands and slowly closed his eyes. Triple Absolute Space Realm was activated. Everything around him seemed to freeze. It was as if countless people from the Xiaoyao sect appeared. We want you to pay with your blood. Boom! The first to attack was Qinzhou. With a punch, the earth shook. The god-level Sumeru space treasure, 100 Disaster City, was smashed into pieces. Kill! You killed Master. I will kill you. Gue Ci didn't take the first, Triple Realm, to heart. But when the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, all of them were Triple, Absolute Space Realm. And there was even the Absolute Space Domain, that no one on the floating island had ever seen before. He stole a glance at Ning Su. The man in the air didn't leave or attack again. Instead, he looked at the girl lying in a pool of blood. Gue Ci gritted his teeth and didn't attack again. He just looked at the girl lying in a pool of blood. He didn't believe it. What could mere mortals from the cultivation continent do to him? At most, he would unseal all of his power. After that, he would suffer the punishment of the heavenly Tao's backlash. Phantom Sting chuckled nervously and suddenly opened his eyes. A pair of brown vertical pupils shone brightly. Then, his hands began to quickly form seals in front of his chest. The spiritual power of heaven and earth surged. Then, horrifying scarlet-eyed fire bats started to appear behind him one after another. There were more than 100 of them, and every one of them was the size of an eagle. They stared at Luo Yu and the others viciously. Hee hee. Hee hee hee. Come on. Do you really think I'm afraid of you mortal cultivators? Since you guys want to die, then you can all become the food of my red-eyed fire bats. Hee hee hee. The two sides instantly became entangled in battle. Even though he had summoned all of the scarlet-eyed fire bats. The ferocity of the red-eyed fire bats was just as he had expected. Not long after, the 5 people of the Xiaoyao sect were bitten by the sharp teeth of the scarlet-eyed fire bat. But the more he fought, the more frightened he became. These people are crazy. All of them are crazy. They are not afraid of death at all. Even though there were 3 scarlet-eyed fire bats pouncing on them, they still rushed towards him. Chapter 31:15. Not long after, Gue Si's body was filled with countless sword and knife wounds. There were also Qin Zhou's huge fists that cracked his bones. But these were not what Gue Si feared and tormented the most. During the battle, there would be tiny puppets constantly drilling into his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Once one wave was broken, another wave would immediately follow up. Luo Yu's face was pale, and blood flowed out of her 7 orifices. But she did not stop controlling the puppets, torturing and destroying him. Ah! Get lost! Get lost! Gue Si was going crazy. He roared in a shrill voice as if he had gone mad. You're courting death. Good, good. Then I'll kill you. Kill you. He screamed hysterically, and there was no longer any rationality in his eyes. At this moment, he could not even think of bringing Luo Yu back to the floating island alive. At this moment, Gue Si only wanted to kill them, kill these little bastards who tortured and humiliated him. Using his divine sense, the scarlet-eyed fire bats in the sky began to gather. But at this moment, the surrounding time and space suddenly froze, as if someone pressed pause. Ling Yuxing closed his eyes and opened his hands, as if he was holding something in his fingers. At the same time, Chu Moli, who had not participated in the battle, moved. A silver bow appeared in his hands, and 2 black arrows were knocked on the string. The bowstring vibrated, and 2 black arrows flew out. Ah! My eyes, my eyes! Gue Si let out a heart-wrenching scream, and covered his eyes with both hands. 2 streams of blood flowed down from between his fingers. Bastards! Bastards! You forced me to do this. I'll die with you. Scarlet-eyed fire bats, fuse and self-destruct. Ha! Ha ha ha! If I can't live, then don't think of living either. Die together. Let's all die together. But at this moment, Gue Si felt a terrifying pressure coming from the sky. The scarlet-eyed fire bats that were under his control seemed to be frightened by something. They screamed and fled, then disappeared into the air. Brat, how dare you! A coarse voice that didn't have any undulations entered Erie's ears. Phantom Sting, on the other hand, felt as if his soul had been hit hard. Extreme fear, despair, and unresisting surrender surged into his mind. Creepy Sting's knees went soft, and he knelt on the ground with a thud, his eyes widened in horror. At this moment, he could not see anything. But he knew what had happened. It was Wizard. Lan Luoyu summoned the true Bai's divine beast. That was the source of the floating island's power, a power that belonged to the owner of the bloodline that could not be resisted. He had never expected Phantom Sting. Not only could Lan Luoyu summon Bai Zai's main body, she could even become a ruler that Bai Zai would willingly submit to. In the previous battle, as long as Bai Zai appeared, it would be able to crush him. Lan Luoyu had never done so. Not that he couldn't do it, but he wanted to torture him. It's great that you're not dead. If I let you die so easily, wouldn't it be too easy for you? Eerie Dazzling's vision went black, and he convulsed and fainted. As soon as his head hit the ground, Chumoli took it into the space. I'll give this person to me for research. I believe you have no objections. Chapter 31:16. No one answered him. Everyone from the Xiaoyao sect turned to look in the direction where Shirqing disappeared, tears welling up in their eyes. Their master had left them in the end. The old man who brought them back to the Xiaoyao sect and they were at their most desperate and helpless, and gave them a home, would never appear again. Little sister. Ling Yuma suddenly saw Mayan lying in a pool of blood and rushed over. Why is little sister hurt so badly? She must have come back to save master, that's why she risked everything. Ning Su slowly landed on the ground, looking at the unconscious girl and the people of the Xiaoyao sect surrounding her. Suddenly, the demon-slaying sword swept. Boom! With a loud sound, Yun Ruhan and the others were thrown out. Mayan was sent flying by the sword energy, hitting the mountain wall heavily and rolling down. The mountain wall seemed to be unable to withstand such an impact. Countless rocks crumbled down, and the blood-colored figure was crushed to the point where it could no longer be seen. Little sister. Sixth sister. Luo Yu and the others rushed over like crazy. They had almost used up all their spiritual power in the battle with the Phantom Thorn. Right now, they didn't even have the strength to break the boulder. Qin Zhou punched the boulder again and again. Blood gushed out, but it didn't stop. Little sister. Little sister. Live. Little sister, please don't die. Don't die. Master has already left us, you can't. When the rubble was dug up, they saw the bloody and weak figure inside. They couldn't hold back their tears anymore. Little sister is still alive, that's great. Ning Su continued to walk forward step by step. Jun Mayan, stand up. You dare to betray me with this little ability. Yun Ruhan trembled as she brought the medicine to Mayan's lips. Before she could feed it, a sword light came whistling over. Yun Ruhan didn't have time to dodge, and felt a sharp pain in her wrist. The pill fell to the ground. His hand had already been cut into a bloody mess by the sword light. Ning Su didn't seem to see anyone else. His eyes were fixed on Mayan. Now you should know, in front of the real gap in strength, the so-called talent and luck are nothing but a joke. Here, I haven't even used half of my strength, and you are already defenseless. Now, do you still think you can defeat me? The girl lying on the ground was motionless, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep and would never wake up. Ning Su suddenly roars hysterically, Jun Mayan, I've given you many chances. Why? Why did you choose to betray me? Why do you have to force me to kill the person I care about the most with my own hands? Ning Su raises the demon-slaying sword again, about to slash at Mayan. Luo Yu pounced forward and grabbed the blade of the demon-slaying sword with her bare hands. Fresh blood gushed out. How can we allow you to take away someone important? Even if I die, I won't. Luo Yu roared. Light flashed behind her and she released a red and white soul orb. However, he had just fought 2 battles. At this time, whether it was his divine sense or spiritual power, both had been overdrawn to the limit. The 2 soul orbs were much dimmer than before. Before Bai Zhe and Bai Fong appeared, Ning Su suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. An incomparably powerful energy surged, and instantly grasped the 2 soul beads in his palm. Pooh! Luo Yu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Little 7th. Chapter 31:17. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with exciting reading. Yun Ruhan roared angrily, and the ice soul sword pierced towards Ning Su. However, when the tip of the sword reached Ning Su, it was suddenly caught by 2 fingers. Yun Ruhan desperately urged her internal energy, but the long sword seemed to be welded and did not move at all. Just as he was about to withdraw his sword, he suddenly felt a bone-chilling coldness spread from his fingers into his meridians and dantian. Yun Ruhan let out a muffled groan, her face as pale as paper, but she was unable to move at all. Ning Su held the ice soul sword in his right hand and 2 soul orbs in his left. The corners of his mouth curled into a cruel and sinister smile. That day in the Green Feather Mountain, when I fought with you with 90% of my power sealed, did it give you an illusion? Do you think ants like you have the qualifications to speak to me on equal terms? The soul orb in his left hand throbbed violently, emitting a dazzling white light. A murderous glint flashed in Ning Su's eyes, and his fingers suddenly tightened. Ah! Luo Yu let out a shrill scream as her body curled into a ball. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. A ball of blazing scarlet lotus fire soared into the sky. The red lotus soul-capturing saber gave off a vicious howl, slashing straight down towards Ning Su. Lin Yuxing and Qin Zhou moved at the same time. Only Chu Moli remained seated in his wheelchair, calmly watching this scene. His complexion was completely pale, and his lips were chapped and trembling. At this moment, he no longer had the slightest ability to fight. Even if Ning Su were to kill his fellow disciples one by one, he could only watch on helplessly. He could only watch helplessly. Chu Moli slowly turned his head around and looked at the girl covered in blood and dust. Her long eyelashes drooped, and there was no trace of blood on her pale face. His frail body was motionless, as if he had lost all signs of life. Little junior sister, have you really been utterly defeated? I don't want to go through that again, and I believe you don't want to either, right? Jun Mayan. Jun Mayan. Open your eyes now. Do you hear me? You idiot, why are you so stupid? He obviously has such great potential, but he can't even beat a fool who has sealed most of his cultivation. So noisy. Qi Xiao Huang, why are you always so noisy? Mayan's eyelashes trembled slightly, wanting Qi Huang to shut up. But she felt that her eyelids were so heavy, and her body was getting colder and colder, more and more out of control. Slowly, her soul drifted out of her body. She saw Luo Yu and Yun Ruhan charging towards Ning Su, saw her fellow disciples unable to fight back against Ning Su. He saw Shi Qing, who had already turned to ash. Master! If the soul had tears, Mayan's face would already be streaming with tears. She could save the world, but she couldn't save her master. Now, even his fellow disciples were going to be killed by Ning Su. No. Absolutely not. The Xiaoyao sect is my home. Ever since she came to the cultivation continent, this family had always accompanied her and tolerated her. They didn't care about her background and identity. They didn't care that she had a child out of wedlock. No matter how much trouble she caused, her fellow apprentices would not hesitate to stand by her side and tell her with a smile. The 7 unfettered disciples advanced and retreated together. Inseparable in life and inseparable in death. How could she allow anyone to hurt them? How could she allow herself to watch her loved ones die in front of her? But what could she do? Just as Ning Su said, in the face of absolute power, all talent, luck, and tricks became a joke. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 31:18. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, to provide you with exciting reading. And this was only 30% of Ning Su's power under the suppression of the heavenly Tao. A world of difference in strength. How could she win? What else could she do to turn the tide? Moon spiritual root. Do you know what the greatest secret of the moon spiritual root is? Suddenly, Seven Brilliance's flustered and exasperated voice reached his ears. The chaos of heaven and earth gave birth to the 5 elements. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth complement each other, but they cannot coexist. Once it coexists, it will become barren, unable to cultivate. But the moon spirit root is different. It's like the ancestor of all things, like its light, like its dust, all-encompassing, without beginning or end. Every time you make a breakthrough, your heaven spirit root will give birth to another one. Water, fire, earth, wood, and metal. When the 5 spirits gather, the primordial chaos is formed. Fuse the 5 spirit roots in your body. Only the true moon spirit root will allow you to control it. Grasp what? Mayan's long eyelashes tremble again. Her mind was still confused, but her body was already changing according to Qi Huang's narration. 5 spiritual roots. Where did she get 5 spiritual roots? That's right, every time she advanced, a new celestial spiritual root would be born in her body. From water at the beginning, to fire, earth, wood, and metal. Once she realized this, 5 rays of light immediately lit up in her body. Then, they slowly merged into one, becoming as white as the moon and as lustrous as jade. This ball of white light slowly seeped into her dantian, sea of consciousness, meridians, flesh, and brain. Mu Yen suddenly feels as if she's grasping something. At that time, when she had just broken through the crossing tribulation stage in the Tian Mo Qin space, she had felt a powerful and frightening power drifting around her. But when she tried to sense it carefully, it suddenly disappeared. Now, she finally felt it, or rather, grasped this power. Mu Yen slowly opens her eyes. What he saw was the scene of devastation at the foot of Mount Feng. However, what appeared in his mind was a completely different scene. They were countless densely packed dots of light and flowing lines. Mayan looks at Ning Su, and sees the specks of light wandering around his body, his meridians, ultimately converging at his dantian. The same specks of light were also swimming around the bodies of the 6 carefree disciples. What are these dots of light? Mu Yan's fingers lightly move. The specks of light in the sky seem to have been summoned and quickly gathered towards her, pouring into her body. He could feel a gurgling warm current flowing into his dried-up dantian. Mu Yen suddenly widens her eyes. She knew what these spots of light were. That was spiritual power. But at this moment, she could actually see the trajectory of all the spiritual power in the world, and even control them. In his mind, Qi Huang's indistinct voice finally became clearer. The power of law. There is no battle skill stronger than this in the world. Exquisite sword techniques, sharp talisman treasures, in front of the power of laws, they are all trash. In this world that is dominated by spiritual power, once you master the power of the 5 elements, you will truly be an invincible existence. Ning Su stepped on Yun Ruhan's neck and looked down at him. His ice-cold gaze was filled with disgust and hatred, as if he wanted to tear him into pieces. It's all because of you, demon. If not for Yun Ruhan's reincarnation. If the Yun Ruhan who has been reincarnated through possession isn't Mayan's senior brother, he and Mu Yen shouldn't have come to this step. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 31:19. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, to provide you with exciting reading. But there was also a voice that kept ringing in Ning Su's ears. It had nothing to do with Yun Ruhan. His existence only further proves that whether it's Ning Yanxin or Mayan, in the end, it would still be him who would be abandoned. The pain and hatred in Ning Su's heart surged like lava. He raised the demon-slaying sword in his hand and stabbed it at Yunruhan's heart. Eldest senior brother. However, the demon-slaying sword suddenly stopped in midair. Ning-Su suddenly realized something and turned his head abruptly. Under the hazy night sky, the girl in blood-red clothes had stood up at some point. Her long hair fluttered in the wind like a waterfall and fluttered messily in the air. Her pale face was stained with blood, but it appeared even more crystalline and translucent. Ning-Su's pupils violently contract, his mouth muttering 3 words, Jun Mayan. He looked at the young girl who was covered in wounds but still stood up. Ning-Su did not know what he was feeling. Does he want Jun Mayan to die? The surging hatred in his heart told him that he wanted to. But what about after killing Mayan? What was left of his life? Ning-Su closed his eyes to hide the pain and resentment in them. In the next moment, he raised the demon-slaying sword and swung it down in Mu Yan's direction. At this point, what was there to hesitate about? He had no way out. Jun Mayan must die. Seeing the demon-slaying sword chi whistling towards her, Mu Yan quietly stood in place, motionless. Suddenly, he raised his hand and lightly waved his sword. This sword strike was really understated, weak and powerless. However, the overwhelming demon-slaying sword chi disappeared without a trace in an instant. Since the start of the battle, this was the first time Ning-Su had a shocked expression on his face. What did you do? The 7 absolute sword hung low, almost touching the ground as it slowly approached Ning-Su. With every step he took, the tip of his sword would create a wave of air. In the end, the girl's figure became more and more blurry in the airwaves, as if she was going to completely merge with the airwaves. Mu Yan's gaze sweeps around. With the exception of Chu Moli, everyone from the Xiaoyao school had been seriously injured by Ning-Su. As for her master, he had already turned into ashes. No matter how heaven-defying her medical skills were, she could not bring him back to life. Mu Yan's gaze finally falls on Ning-Su. At this moment, there was no longer a shred of reluctance or hesitation in her eyes. All that was left was ice-cold heartlessness. Ning-Su, haven't you always wanted to settle things with me? Now, I will fulfill your wish. The young girl's voice was slightly hoarse, but each word was like knocking on ice. Today, I will personally cut you down with my sword. Ning-Su restrains the shock on his face and sneers, Jun Mayan, have you forgotten the despair of not being able to fight back against me just now? Swish! The 7 absolute sword slashed out like a bright galaxy in the night sky. Now, I shall return the same despair to you. Ning-Su only had time to hear this sentence. He felt as if his surroundings had suddenly sunk into a deathly silence. Yes, he was clearly still in the heavenly Phoenix mountain range. The night sky, the mountain range, and the shattered 100 disaster city were clearly still in front of him. However, he felt as if his 5 senses had been blocked. Then, he was thrown into a space that was isolated from the world. Ning-Su was on full alert, looking around vigilantly. Swish! The sword light seemed to appear out of thin air, brushing past his neck. Ning-Su dodged at a speed as fast as lightning. The tip of the sword narrowly brushed past his neck, bringing with it a burning pain. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 31:20. Swish! Ning-Su had no time to digest this sudden attack. The second sword strike came again without a sound. This time, Ning-Su was not as lucky as before. His arm was slashed by a saber, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. He wanted to use his spiritual energy to heal the wound on his arm. However, just as the spiritual power attached to the wound, it seemed to be sucked away by something, disappearing without a trace. What was this? Ning Su was both shocked and furious. What did Jun Mayan do? Why couldn't he control the spiritual power between heaven and earth? He couldn't even sense it. Even the spiritual power in his body would go out of control when it was released from his meridians. Swish, swish, swish. Countless sword lights whizzed over. Ning Su had nowhere to hide, and not long after, he was covered in cuts and bruises. Even his entire left hand was chopped off at the wrist. Blood dripped from his severed palm. Ah! Jun Mayan. Ning Su let out a heart-wrenching roar of rage. He no longer cared about the suppression of the rules of the heavenly Tao, and abruptly released all of his powers. The demon-slaying sword let out an ear-piercing hum and soared into the sky. Voila! It was as if a barrier had suddenly been torn apart. Ning Su finally sensed the surging spiritual power between heaven and earth again. A young girl in blood-red clothes stood not far from him with a sword in her hand. However, compared to his previously pale complexion, there was not a single trace of blood in it. The girl's body was so delicate and thin, as if she could collapse at any time. Very obviously, in order to kill him, Jun Mayan also paid a sufficient price. But how did she do it? Why did Mayan have the ability to defeat her in just a short moment? Rumble. The deafening sound of thunder came from the sky. Ning Su knew that it was because he had lifted the seal on his strength that surpassed the limits of the cultivation land. That was why he had incurred the wrath of the heavens. He only glanced at it casually. However, this one glance caused his entire body to freeze. There were no stars or moon tonight because the sky was overcast. But at some point in time, the sky had already been covered by a thick layer of clouds. When Ning Su raised his head, a purple-gold bolt of lightning split the entire cloud layer. It also illuminated the heavenly Phoenix mountain range as bright as day. This was not the heavenly punishment that he had attracted. Just unsealing this bit of power was not enough to attract such a vast divine thunder of punishment. Then who was the one who attracted this divine thunder? Ning Su asked himself, and then his gaze fell on the young girl opposite him. Jun Mayan, what did you do? He roared almost crazily. Do you think you can survive after attracting such a powerful divine thunder of heaven punishment? The 7 ultimate swords spun in the air. All the spiritual energy in the heavenly Phoenix mountain range converged towards the tip of her sword like dancing fireflies. There were more and more fireflies and the light became more and more brilliant. Slowly, it gathered into the Milky Way galaxy. Ning Su's heart instantly suffocated. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. At this moment, he feels that he's not fighting Mayan alone. The heavenly Phoenix mountain range, the cultivation continent, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes, the seas, and the creatures of heaven and earth. At this moment, it has become Jun Mayan's fighting strength, a hand that wants to crush his life. Ning Su had always been arrogant, stubborn, and conceited. But at this moment, a true sense of powerlessness and despair welled up in the depths of his heart. His eyes were wide open, the whites of his eyes crimson. He slightly opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something. But in the end, he only spat out 3 words, Jun Mayan. Chapter 31-21. Rumble. The thunder in the sky is getting louder and louder. The purplish gold lightning exploded, as if it was going to split the entire sky. The people of the Xiaoyao sect, who were seriously injured and unconscious, opened their eyes under such strong light. What is this? Junior sister, where's junior sister? Chu Molit sits in a wheelchair, looking up at the golden snake-like lightning in the sky and the increasingly blurry figure of the girl, his hands gripping the armrest. Junior sister, this is a warning, don't you know? Aren't you ready to stop? Third brother, what are you talking about? What's wrong with junior sister? Boom. In the sky, the seven absolutes sword trembles and whistles. The Milky Way sea of stars tumbles, moving mountains and draining seas, instantly turning into a giant beast with a bloody mouth, swallowing Ning Su whole. Jun Mayan. I, Ning Su, swear that I will never let you. Ning Su's gut-wrenching howl is annihilated between heaven and earth. Chu Moli closes his eyes with a pale face, muttering, "Of course you know, but you never intend to stop." Rumble. The purple gold dragon that has been hovering in the air finally swoops down from the sky. Junior sister. Sixth sister. Mayan lowers her head and sees her fellow disciples rushing towards her. Using the last bit of her strength, she gently waves her hand at them. The spiritual power between heaven and earth seems to have a mind of its own. It immediately sets off a hurricane, sweeping the 6 people back to their original place. In the end, the heavenly thunder still falls and directly strikes Mayan, completely annihilating the girl's small figure. However, before Mayan can feel the pain, she feels that she is firmly protected. A muffled groan of pain resounds in her ears. The familiar voice makes Mayan suddenly open her eyes. "Suzy. How can you be? No. Chi Huang. You're Chi Huang." Nonsense. The youngster grimaces. "If it's not this sage, who else can it be? This sage only has you as a stupid master. Don't tell me I have to watch you die." Rumble. Another heavenly thunder falls, and Suzy spits out a mouthful of blood. Black air twines around him, but he still firmly protects Mayan in his arms. Mayan suddenly realizes something. That won't do. Chi Huang, quickly return to the Tian Mo Chin space. Suzy's body won't be able to take it, and you said that no one can know of your existence. The color of Suzy's eyes flickered for a moment. Suddenly, the voice turned into the real Suzy. "Little sister, I'm fine. As long as I can save you, as long as I can let you live, I can do it. I will definitely persevere until all the divine lightning has passed." As soon as Ning Su appeared, a strange voice appeared in Suzy's mind, asking him if he was willing to give up his body for him to use. In the past, when he was possessed, Suzy was always in a state of drowsiness and did not hear Chi Huang's voice clearly. But in that instant, he immediately recognized it. That was little Missy's spiritual pet, that mysterious and powerful person who couldn't be seen by others but had always been by little Missy's side. Suzy wants to help Jun Mayan. But he knows that he's too weak. If he stays, he'll only be a burden to Mu Yen. There's no other use. Therefore, the moment he heard Chi Huang's voice, he agreed without hesitation. The divine lightning descends, burning his flesh and burning his bones. Even though Chi Huang has blocked most of the damage, how could it not hurt? Chapter 31-22. Of course it's painful. But his life was saved by the little sister, again and again. Without Mayan, there would be no Suzy in the world who has recovered from his heart disease. For a long time, he couldn't do anything for the little sister. Now, what's the harm in exchanging his life for the little sister's? Boom! The deafening sound of thunder resounds in his ears again. Suzy knows that he won't be able to endure this god's thunder anymore. The black gas around his body is getting thicker and thicker. The originally delicate and handsome youth's face is tainted with a bit of breathtaking beauty. But his smile is still so warm. "Little sister, you must live well. Must fart. Chi Xiao Huang, you bastard, if you mess around again, I'll spank your ass." Mayan grits her teeth and curses, raising her hand to grab his chest. She grabs a red figure in the air. Before Suzy can clearly see what that red figure is, he's already slapped down from the air. "Senior, take care of this kid for me. don't let him die by any means. And everything in the Shushan continent, I'll leave it all to you. The purple gold god's thunder of heaven's punishment really falls on Mayan this time. The sea of fireflies surrounding her were instantly smashed into pieces. Mayan fiercely spits out a mouthful of blood and heavily falls on the mountain peak. One more inch forward, and it's the bottomless refining god abyss. It's the refining god abyss that can shatter an immortal's body and consign them to eternal damnation. Yun Rohan grabs Su Zi, who's falling from the air, and throws him aside. Her whole body quickly soars up and rushes towards the girl on the mountain peak. The other people of the Xiaoyao school, including Chu Moli in the wheelchair, recklessly rush up. Faster. A little faster. Little sister can't die. I beg you, she can't die. In the Tian Mo Chin space. Chi Huang awkwardly rolls on the grass, but he doesn't have the time to tidy up his messy clothes and long hair. He suddenly turns his head, his crimson eyes looking outside the space. He roars at the top of his lungs, Jun Mayan, this is the last god's thunder of heaven's punishment. Endure it, you must endure it. His voice was hoarse and trembling, as if he had used up all of his strength and begged for the humblest thing in his life. Jun Mayan, I beg you, don't die. Don't let me return to the endless darkness, Gujajiji. Brother Red Pants, what's wrong with you? Hearing the crisp chirping in his ears. Chi Huang whipped his head around, his crimson eyes fixed on the little chick in front of him. It was like a ferocious beast that had been starving for 10 days and 10 nights had finally found its prey. Coo! Chick! The Ahol-gone little chick's head twitched as it took a step back in fear. Rumble! The last heavenly thunder sounded. Mu Yan only feels a dazzling white light explode in front of her. She saw the people of the Xiaoyao sect madly rushing towards her. He heard 7 Brilliance's howls and cries. She could even hear the clamor of the Dark Flame Army, Beautiful City Army, and Liangqin Army from afar. But all of this was getting further and further away from her. Chi Huang, I'm sorry. It seems that I won't be able to survive the last bolt of lightning. Xiao Bao, Di Ming Ju. Just as the hoarse murmur came out, suddenly, she heard a guji sound in her ears. A fluffy yellow ball rolled out in a sorry state, crying and whimpering. Chick chick chick. Mama, mama. Brother Red Pants is bullying me. Chapter 31-23. While complaining, the furry dumpling rolls around in Mu Yan's arms and bumps its head into her chest. Suddenly, a ball of light flashed on Mu Yan's chest, and then something gradually appeared. In a trance, Mu Yan only saw 4 words, floating light jade key. Floating light jade key. What was that? Jade keys are divided into cloudy sky jade key, flickering light jade key, and spirit ruin jade key. What you have now is the cloudy sky jade key, which can open low-level Tianguang ruins, but not mid-level and high-level Tianguang ruins. First host, choose the floating light jade key. I must choose the floating light jade key. Mu Yan suddenly remembers. It was the special reward she had obtained in the Tianguang ruins, the floating light jade key. But why would the floating light jade key appear now? Rumble. At this moment, the heavenly punishment thunder finally struck down. The peak of the mountain that Mu Yan was on collapsed, and her body, which was already powerless, fell towards the refining god abyss along with the crushed rocks. Little junior sister. The 6 people from the Xiaoyao school wanted to jump down as well, but they were held back by an invisible force. They could only let out helpless and desperate roars. However, at this moment, a resplendent silver light shone on the falling girl's body, slowly wrapping her within. Coo, coo, coo. The little chick on the girl's shoulder rolled over. It tilted its head towards the 6 people on top of the precipice and waved its short claws. In the next moment, both Mu Yen and Yinghua disappeared into the light. Xiuxian continent. Bang! After a loud sound, Mu Luyun and his subordinates guarding the entrance of the heaven-reaching stairway were sent flying by the huge shockwave and fainted. After a long time, Mu Luyun slowly woke up. Mu Luyun's expression kept changing as he looked at the entrance to the heaven stairway, which had already collapsed and disappeared. His eyes were filled with shock and bewilderment. Priest Luyun, what's going on? When the subordinate woke up and saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. How could the stairway to heaven be destroyed? Apart from the ancient war, such a thing has never happened before. Mu Luyun was silent for a long time before he muttered, "That's because someone used the power of the law and the cultivation continent." WH. What? The subordinate suspected that he had misheard. The power of law. And on the cultivation continent. Was Priest Luyun joking with him? Mu Luyun also could not help but raise his voice slightly as he exclaimed, able to grasp the power of laws with the body of a virtual immortal. How many years has it been since I've seen such a monstrous genius? It's a pity. I was too stupid. Priest, what do you mean? Using the power of laws in the cultivation continent is simply courting death. So what if he was a genius? In the end, he still couldn't escape the punishment of the heavenly Tao. So, that person, the Shin musician who triggered the 9 stars and the moon, is already dead? Then are we still going to guard the spatial barrier? Mu Luyun shook his head regretfully, but his eyes were cold. There's no need. A ghost that has already turned into ashes is not worthy of our master's attention. Let's go. Polar domain. Sunglasses are fine, what nonsense are you talking about? How could the ladder to heaven be destroyed? Sunglasses Ching still had a lot of scratches on his face. He immediately said with grief and indignation, "How would I know if you ask me?" Just as the spatial barrier passage was about to be opened, it suddenly triggered a big explosion. How many treasures in my temple that are used to guide the laws of space were all fucking destroyed? Jun Shang, you must compensate me. Chapter 31-24. Di Mingju tightly clutches the void spirit ring in his hand. Feeling the vigorous life force from the ring, his heart slowly calmed down. The ethereal spirit ring wouldn't lie. Mu Yan was still alive and well. All he needed to do now was to find her. Di Mingju closes his eyes. Do you know why the stairway to heaven was destroyed? Sunglasses Ching knitted his brows and said with some hesitation, because the spatial barrier passage is only half built, I'm not too sure about the situation on the cultivation continent. But I seem to feel the fluctuations of the power of laws, as well as the aura of the heavenly punishment thunder. Could it be that someone used the power of laws in the cultivation continent and was punished by the heavenly punishment thunder? This is impossible, right? Which freak can use the power of law in the cultivation continent? There was dead silence in the hall. Everyone was frowning. Sunglasses Ching felt that the atmosphere was a little off. He swallowed and asked tentatively, could it be that someone can really do it? No, then wasn't she courting death by doing this? The heavenly punishment thunder. Even the invincible golden body of Debi Temple would be smashed into pieces. Elder Chang hurriedly said, King Shua, shut up. Sunglasses Ching looks at Di Mingju's complexion, and promptly covers his mouth. Di Mingju's hands tightly clench into fists. After a long while, he hoarsely says, how long will it take to rebuild the stairway to heaven? Rebuild the stairway to heaven? Di Mingju, are you crazy? Seeing Di Mingju coldly looking over, he shrunk his neck and tentatively gave a number, 3, 30 years. 3 months. Fuck. What a joke, Demingju, you might as well kill me. Hey, Demingju, don't go ah. Let's discuss again. If 30 years isn't enough, 3 years should be fine, right? Woo, Jun Shang, I was wrong, I beg you to give me a bit more time. Demingju climbs the highest mountain peak in the polar domain, only then does he release Xiaobao. I'm sorry. He gently stroked Xiaobao's head, his voice indescribably hoarse. Daddy is going to break his promise. Xiaobao's sparkling eyes immediately dimmed. The expression on his little face was so sad and heartbroken. Xiaobao still can't see mother. Demingju is silent and doesn't speak. Is mother alive and well? Demingju nods without hesitation. He knew that his Yan was still alive. No matter where she was, his Yan would live well. Xiaobao reaches out a small hand and caresses Demingju's face, his voice carrying a sobbing tone. Daddy, don't be sad, we will definitely be able to see mother again. At this moment, the softness and bitterness in Demingju's heart burst out at the same time. There was a momentary warmth in her eyes. He suddenly reached out and pulled the little body into his arms. Daddy promises you that in 3 months at most, I'll definitely let you see mother. Xiaobao nodded heavily and wiped his tears away with his sleeve. Xiaobao believes in Daddy. During these 3 months, Xiaobao will enter the pocket world to continue cultivating. Demingju rubs his head, softly saying, all right. Just at this moment, a figure comes galloping over from afar, landing in front of Demingju and Xiaobao. Greetings, Lord, greetings, young master. Demingju turns his head to look at the newcomer, and casually nods his head, indicating for him to get up. Xiaobao's voice still carries a sobbing tone, but his little face is taut as he shouts, Uncle Defeating Armies. Defeating Armies stands up, his gaze roaming between Demingju and Xiaobao. Is something the matter? Chapter 31-25. Defeating Armies bowed his head and said, Imperial Monarch, this subordinate would like to request a period of leave from you. Demingju raises an eyebrow, ask for leave. What do you want to do? Defeating Armies takes a deep breath, and only after a long while does he say in a low voice, this subordinate wants to suppress his cultivation and make a trip to the Yanwu continent with his real body. Yanwu continent. This time, even Demingju reveals an astonished expression. Xiaobao tilted his head and looked at Defeating Armies in confusion. Yanwu continent, isn't that the place where he was born? What is Uncle Pajun doing there? Defeating Armies looks at Xiaobao, then looks at Demingju, wanting to say something but hesitating. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. He hangs his head and says, there are some matters that this subordinate needs to go to the Yanwu continent to verify. Please grant my wish, Lord. Cultivation Continent, Heavenly Phoenix Mountain Range. The thunderclouds in the sky had already dissipated at some point. The sky in the east was once again turning bright. The 6 disciples of the Xiaoyao school were still lying on the precipice of the mountain peak in a daze. Little junior sister didn't seem to fall into the refining god abyss. He wasn't struck by the divine lightning. What is that light? Chu Moli slowly exhaled. That's the floating light jade key. Flickering light jade key. What is that? Chu Moli's expression was also a little dazed. When he heard the question, it was a long while before he muttered, that is the special jade key of the heavenly light ruins of the floating island. It is also the key that can forcibly construct a spatial barrier passage. His voice suddenly stopped, and he couldn't help but chuckle. Little junior sister, how many more surprises do you have for us? The remaining 5 looked at each other in dismay. They had no idea what this mysterious third senior brother was talking about. But there was one thing he understood. Is junior sister alright? Chu Moli sighed. Of course, the person who can kill June Mayan in this world might not even be born yet. So little junior sister went to the floating island. Damn, our cultivation is only at the leaving aperture stage. We can't go to the cultivation continent or the sky floating island. Yun Ruhan wiped away the blood and sweat on her face and revealed a faint smile. As long as I'm alive, we'll be able to meet again. Yes. As long as they were alive, they could always meet again. Furthermore, it's just the crossing calamity stage. I want to break through within a year. Fourth senior sister, you're too slow. I want 8 months. Get lost, then I'll give you 6 months. I have 5 months. Chu Moli took a look at the devastated Heavenly Phoenix mountain range, as well as the surging human heads that he could see from the summit of the mountain. They were the Dark Flame Army, Beautiful City Army and Good Dawn Army that refused to leave. Also, everything on the cultivation continent is in your hands. He was still thinking about the girl's shout before the lightning struck. Chu Moli suddenly felt a headache coming on. He held his forehead and revealed a bitter smile. So, junior sister, just how big of a mess did you leave for us? If the 4 major legions found out that the people they had been loyal to had disappeared, 3 months. Chu Moli suddenly said, break through and undergo tribulation in 3 months, then go to the floating island. Hula! The 5 of them simultaneously cast their gazes towards him. Their gazes were filled with shock, as if they didn't recognize Chu Moli at all. The laziest, most Buddhist, and most inattentive third brother actually wanted to cultivate diligently. The sun wouldn't rise from the west today, right? Chu Moli didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he turned his head to look down the mountain and smiled lightly. Yun Ruhan, on the other hand, understood his meaning. She slowly said, the cultivation continent is very vast, but it's already not enough for us to soar. Or do you want to continue wasting time here, and let junior sister leave us further and further behind? Absolutely not. The unfettered 7 will advance and retreat together, and never abandon each other. Luo Yu clenched her fists tightly and said hoarsely, I originally didn't want to take revenge, but I definitely don't want to let off that person who harmed eldest senior brother and took away master's life. Ling Yuma said, my mother and grandfather are both on the floating island. I also want to go to the floating island to take a look. Qin Jiu lowered his eyes. After a long while, he said hoarsely, word by word, go to floating island. Yun Ruhan said, all right, then it's decided. 3 months. 3 months later, we will meet up with junior sister on the floating island. The 6 of them looked at the vast rivers and mountains below the mountain peak. Then, they stepped onto their flying swords and sped away. There will always be a time for flowers to bloom and wilt, and there will always be a time for clouds to gather and disperse. After this long separation, they will return to the same destination. The mountains will not change, and the rivers will always flow. There will always be a day when time flies and the blue sea turns into mulberry fields. The people who have been separated will meet again. Chapter 31-26. Cultivation Continent, Linglong Island. Jiyu, what are you doing in that direction? The one who was stopped was a little girl with a double-ringed bun. Upon hearing this, he quickly said, greetings, Sister Hanyu. It was Deputy Island Master Huang who ordered me to go to Huaqing Palace to invite young Master Li over. Hearing the 3 words young Master Li, Hanyu's expression obviously stiffened. He had a hesitant expression on his face. Jiyu asked in confusion, Sister Hanyu, what's wrong? Is there a problem? No, nothing. Han Yu glanced in the direction of Hua Qing Hall with alarm and vigilance before forcing a smile. Since it's Deputy Island Master Huang's order, just do it. After a pause, she couldn't help but add, go and come back quickly. Don't delay. As Shi Yu walked into the Clear Flower Palace Hall, Han Yu's fearful and worried expression still flashed through her mind. What was in the Pure Flower Palace that could make Sister Han Yu so afraid? Could it be young Master Li? Shi Yu had just been transferred to the main island from the periphery of Linglong Island 2 years ago. As for the background of this young Master Li, he was completely clueless. She only knew that young Master Li was very important to young Master Li, and she usually did not allow anyone to approach young Master Li's Pure Flower Palace. Shi Yu walked around the main hall of the Clear Flower Palace, but she didn't find even a shadow of a person. The entire Clear Flower Palace was incomparably luxurious and magnificent, but it was empty inside. There wasn't even a servant to serve. Shi Yu cautiously shouted for a long time in the hall, but she didn't get any response. Behind Clear Flower Palace was a flower garden that was twice the size of the palace. It was filled with all kinds of colorful flowers. Some were as red as blood, some were as brilliant as the sun, and some were as blue as the sky. Shi Yu couldn't find anyone in the hall, so she unknowingly walked into the flower bed. Looking at the scene in front of him, he was stunned. So beautiful. Even if the Linglong Island itself was as beautiful as a fairyland. However, Shi Yu was still shocked by the scene in front of her. As she strolled among the flowers, her mouth and nose were filled with the most fragrant fragrance. Her round little face couldn't help but reveal an intoxicated expression. Suddenly, Shi Yu's footsteps came to an abrupt halt, her eyes blurred and dreamy as she gazed into the distance. Amidst the colorful and bustling scene, a young man was looking down at a small flower with a gentle expression on his face. The young man wore a spotless white robe. But his eyes were covered by a red ribbon that was even more glaring than fresh blood, completely covering his eyes. Where the red silk could not reach, the tall nose bridge was like a snowy ridge, and the skin was cold and white like jade. Further down were the light pink lips that were slightly hooked. Her expression was bashful and gentle. He was like a young boy who had just experienced his first awakening of love. Shi Yu's heart was beating like a drum, and for a moment, her entire mind seemed to be bewitched by this fairy-like youth. Such a thought unconsciously appeared in his mind. If the young man was looking at her with such a gentle expression, and not a flower, how many times would that be? As Shi Yu thought of this, her eyes unconsciously fell on the flower that the youth was taking care of. Only then did she realize that the flower was very peculiar. Surrounded by a sea of colorful flowers, there was only this fragile and small blue flower that looked like it could break at any moment. Moreover, the appearance of this flower was also very strange. The entire plant seemed to be carved out of ice crystals. The roots were translucent, and as she got closer, she could see the gurgling juice inside. And at the top of the branches and leaves, there was a small light pink flower bud that was gently swaying in the wind. Chapter 31:27. Sparkling star-like lights floated in the air as the flower bud swayed. It created a kind of dreamy beauty. Shi Yu was stunned and couldn't help but exclaim, "What a beautiful flower!" Even if it was just a flower bud, it was already so dazzling. If it were to bloom, what kind of peerless beauty would it be? Linglong Island was also full of flowers, how come she had never seen it before? Shi Yu's cry naturally startled the youth. But it also seemed to startle the flower that was swaying gently in the wind. Then, she watched helplessly as black spots began to appear on the pink flower bud. More and more, densely packed until the entire flower branch was covered. Finally, the flower withered. The youth in the red silk looked at his empty palm in a daze. The gentleness on his face turned into sadness and sadness, in the end. I still couldn't succeed. Ji panicked. How could this be? She faintly felt that it might be because of her. Seeing the youth look at her, she panicked so much that tears almost flowed out. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's like this. I shouldn't have said anything. The youth's expression was still sad, but he still comforted her with a smile. It's not your fault. This flower is not easy to raise. I've raised it for hundreds of years and still haven't been able to make it bloom. What's the matter? Ji stuttered. It was Deputy Island Master Huang who asked me to come to Huaqin Palace to invite young Master Li over, Miss. Miss has something to say. Oh, what's the matter, sister? The youth tilted his head, revealing a puzzled expression. Ji was startled. Was the youth in front of her the master of Huaqin Palace, Li Weiran? But she had never heard that young Master Li was blind. Moreover, the entire Linglong Island seemed to fear young Master Li. But the young Master Li in front of her was clearly such a gentle youth. Just as she was thinking about this, a glaring red suddenly came closer. The man's gentle voice drifted into her ears. Do you like flowers? I do. Then how about this one for you? His slender fingers were currently holding a flower that was as dazzling as the red silk on his face, and he handed it to Ji. Ji's round face suddenly flushed red, and the expression in her eyes was both shy and happy. This. How can this be? How can I accept young Master Li's things? The youth chuckled and said, but I feel that this flower is as beautiful as you, so I really want to give it to you. In the end, Ji couldn't resist the shyness and anticipation in her heart. She reached out and carefully took the flowers. After giving away the flowers, the young man seemed to be satisfied. He pursed his lips into a smile and turned to leave. Ji blankly stared at his back. Her face was blushing, her eyes full of shyness and tenderness. He couldn't help but lower his head and sniff the flower in his hand. Bang! A loud sound rang out, causing the entire flower bed to shake. Ji let out a shrill scream and covered her face with her hands. Hot blood mixed with minced meat flowed from her fingertips. Her other hand had already been bitten off at the wrist, revealing the ghastly white bones. The delicate flower that she had just held in her hand had already changed its appearance. The tender petals were blown to pieces. A ferocious mouth emerged from where the stamen had been, and it was chewing on something. Chapter 31:28. Fresh blood dripped down from the sawtooth. Ah, what a pity. She only bit off her hand and nose. I thought she would bite off half her head. But no matter how many times I see this scene, it makes me feel refreshed. Huang Shouchuan rushed in from outside and saw the scene in the flower bed. Li Weiran, what are you doing? Li Weiran tilted his head and smiled. Oh, it's Deputy Island Master Huang. Why are you so angry? Isn't she just a little girl? If she's dead, then she's dead. Are you going to hold it against me? Huang Shouchuan glared at him and wanted to yell at him, but he held it in. Miss hasn't been in a good mood recently. She's even sick. You better behave yourself and stop causing trouble. Li Weiran pouted and waved his hand in the direction of the flower bed. In the next moment, all the flowers started to roll like a huge wave. Not long after, a hole appeared in the ground and the moaning Ji was sucked in. The Ji screamed in fear. Save me, I don't want to die. Save me. The mournful voice was finally buried. Another fertilizer. Does it taste good? You guys have to enjoy it. Li Weiran caressed the red silk on the bridge of his nose, revealing an incomparably gentle and shy expression. All right, let's go see my sister. He turned around and looked at Huang Shouchuan like a young man. I haven't seen my sister in a long time too. Huang Shouchuan glared at him in disgust and said coldly, come with me. Fian Palace. Yu Yanran leaned against the bed, her lips pale and her expression sad. There was a slight worry between her brows. Seeing Huang Shouchuan and Li Weiran enter, she smiled. Sister, I heard you're in a bad mood. Did someone piss you off? I'll go kill him for you, okay? Li Weiran laid on the bed, his chin resting on his crossed arms. His eyes were covered by the red silk, but he was facing Yu Yanran's face as if his vision was not affected at all. When Yu Yanran heard this, her expression became even sadder. Unknowingly, tears rolled down her cheeks. She shook her head and forced a smile. I'm fine. It's just that I'm having some trouble leveling up recently. Don't worry, Weiran. Miss, how could you be fine? Huang Shouchuan clenched his teeth and said resentfully, after the calamity of collapsing skies, many small families have received an invitation from the polar domain to distribute the latest, Heaven Spirit detoxification pill, to them. Only our nimble island hasn't sent a single person here. If one was bitten by a low-level poltergeist ghost, one only needed to consume an ordinary, Heaven Spirit detoxification pill, to prevent the mutation infection. But this time, many of the poltergeist ghosts that swarmed in through the cracks were high-level. Being bitten by these poltergeist ghosts might not be infected in a short period of time. But as time went on, it would slowly mutate and eventually become a monster that was neither human nor ghost. As for the high-level swan poison, only the newly refined, Heaven Spirit detoxification pill, of the polar domain could cure it. Moreover, the polar domain had never been secretive in this aspect. Almost on the second day after the poltergeist was dealt with, the various clans in the polar domain were notified to collect their antidote pills. After this battle, all the sects and clans of the polar domain were grateful to their emperor, swearing their loyalty to him. They were also proud and rejoiced that they could become a member of the polar domain. But such rejoicing and pride did not belong to the Nimble Island. Chapter 31-29. The people of the polar domain seemed to have deliberately forgotten about the island of Linglong, and no one came to pay attention to them. Huang Shouchuan said hatefully, Miss, when you learned that the emperor was in trouble, you disregarded your own safety and rushed to the hidden abyss to save him. His advice to the god monarch was for his own good. But what about him? For the sake of a mortal woman from the Shuzhen continent, for the sake of a Shin musician remnant, they actually treat you like this. Such an ungrateful and fickle person, why do you still miss him and grieve for him? Yu Yanran hurriedly says, Big brother Huang, don't talk nonsense, the emperor is not that kind of person, cough cough, he was just bewitched by that Shin musician remnant. 1,000 years ago, we learned how sinister and ruthless the methods of the Shin musicians are, and it is impossible to guard against them. If Di Jun knows Jun Mayan's true colors, he will definitely wake up and understand my intentions. Sister just said that Di Mingju was bewitched by the remnants of the Shin musicians. Li Weiran's deep voice suddenly interjects, is it true? Yu Yanran's eyes were red. She bit her lips and refused to speak. However, Huang Shouchuan gnashed his teeth and said, not only was he captivated, he was practically head over heels for that foxy charmer. Knowing full well that he was a remnant of the Shin musicians, he still went all out to protect and conceal it. Why doesn't the emperor think about how deep the enmity between the Shin musicians and all the sects and families of the Shushan continent is? If this woman becomes stronger, what kind of carnage will she bring in the end? The corners of Li Weiran's lips curled up. His voice was soft and gentle, like a young man talking in his sleep. This Shin musician remnant is called Jun Mayan, right? Is she still in the Shuzhen continent? Why don't I go meet her on behalf of my sister? Yu Yanran shook her head and said, Wei Ran, you must not go. Shin musicians have always been crafty, sinister and cunning. Sister is afraid that you will be at a disadvantage. Before Li Weiran could say anything, Huang Shouchuan sighed. I also want to seek justice for Miss, but for some reason, there's a problem with the passage in the sky barrier. The heaven stairway leading to this place from the cultivation continent is broken. It would not be easy to go to the cultivation continent in a short time. Unless... Huang Shouchuan paused and lowered his head to look at Li Weiran, waiting for him to continue, unless what? However, the young man whose face was mostly covered by the red silk merely tilted his head. His light pink lips curled into a smile as if he was mocking him. Huang Shouchuan was so angry that he clenched his teeth. His disgust for this person deepened. But on the surface, he still said in a friendly tone, Do you still remember the soul-chasing curse that I asked you to use? Oh. Li Weiran raised his head excitedly. Back then, I was so busy nurturing my flower that I didn't even have time to look at the soul shadow that I took out. Could it be that the soul-chasing curse was placed on that June? June what? Oh, that's right, is it from June Mayan? Huang Shouchuan says, that's not it, but the person who was cast with the soul-chasing curse had contact with June Mayan. As long as young Master Li is willing to expend your soul essence to track her, I'm sure you'll be able to find June Mayan, kill her, and avenge Miss. Li Weiran looked at Yu Yanran and asked innocently, Sister, do you want me to help you kill Mayan? Chapter 3130. Li Weiran nods as he gets up, beaming, I understand. Sister, rest assured, you saved me when I was on the verge of death. As long as it's your wish, Weiran will definitely fulfill it. He waves his hand, turning and stepping out of Fian Palace, the corners of his mouth curling up again. Diming Ju, June Mayan. Really, interesting. When Li Weiran is far away, Huang Shouchuan says with a calm face, Li Weiran just killed another maid. Yu Yanran frowns, wanting to say something. In the end, she sighs, bury her well, and give her parents some compensation. This subordinate understands. It's just that Miss Li Weiran is temperamental, ruthless. His background is so, if he stays on Linglong Island, he will be a disaster. How about, after we get rid of June Mayan, we hand him over to... Huang Shouchuan's second half of the sentence is very soft, almost inaudible. But Yu Yanran quickly understands what he means. She slightly frowns, her expression is one of reluctance and pity, with a faint trace of fear and disgust. In the end, she doesn't say anything. Woman. There's actually a woman in the gravel hill. Brother, this woman's skin is so tender. Let's drag her back, cut her into pieces and marinate her, we can eat for a few days. Idiot. Is there a hole in your brain? Didn't you see that this woman's appearance is the best of the best, and you're actually thinking of eating? Boo-hoo, but I'm really hungry. Idiot, as long as we sell this woman to the ghost fair, do we still have to worry about not being able to eat and drink? Mayan painfully opens her eyes as she hears the noise and the pain in her head that's like being pricked by needles. What she sees is a barren land of gravel and dust. If she breathes a little too heavily, there'll be smoke and dust choking her nose. Where am I? Did she survive the heavenly punishment? Thinking about it, Mayan finds that her current situation is not good. She's tied up with a strong rope, thrown on a simple stretcher, ready to be dragged forward. As for her dantian, she doesn't know if it was damaged by the heavenly punishment or overconsumption. At this moment it was completely exhausted. When he tried to circulate his spiritual power, he felt a burning pain in his dantian. It took a long time for him to condense a little bit of it. Moreover, whether it's the surrounding spiritual power or internal force, it's really thin to the extreme. It's even worse than the Yenwu continent. Brother! Brother! Look, the woman seems to be awake. Mu Yan follows the voice and raises her head, only to see a dark-skinned little boy dressed in rags. At this time, he is holding his finger in his mouth, his pair of green eyes staring at Mu Yan, swallowing saliva from time to time. It was as if she wasn't a person in his eyes, but a delicious dish. Beside the little boy was a tall but equally bony man. Seeing that Mu Yan was looking at him, the man coughed lightly and avoided her gaze. "Miss, don't blame us. In this world, we have to first ensure that we can survive. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for appearing at Gravel Hill. Shattered Stone Hill." The man was about to reply when he suddenly heard a shout coming from afar. Isn't that the idiot Guorping and his brother? Hee, Guorping, you and your brother have pretty good luck today. What strange beast did you hunt? Let us have a look. Chapter 31. I say, Guorping, you didn't get scared by the strange beasts today, did you? As they spoke, several figures approached. Mu Yan found that the spiritual power and internal force in her dantian were still slowly recovering, but the process was somewhat painful. Of course, Mu Yan didn't care about this pain at all. And she knew that this pain was actually the self-healing process of the dantian. So she simply stopped struggling. Instead, she observed the surrounding environment and these people with great interest. The more she looked, the more strange Mu Yan felt. Because there was almost no fluctuation of spiritual power around these people. In other words, they weren't cultivators, but mortals. But it was a bit inaccurate to say that they were mortals. Because they were moving very fast. On the uneven, rugged gravel road, they were moving as if they were flying. It was almost comparable to her own speed when she was a pre-celestial in the Yenwu continent. And although these people were all thin and small, the muscles attached to their hands and feet were extremely explosive. With a casual step, they could break a hard rock. Hiss! Brother Chang, come look. It's not a strange beast, it's a girl. What a hot girl. My God, I've never seen such a beautiful woman in my life. How long has it been since the Gravel Hill saw an adult woman? What's more, such a superb one. The leader was a young man called Brother Chang, and he looked shifty-eyed. At this time, his eyes seemed to be glued to Mu Yan, and he didn't even notice that his saliva was dripping down. Only when he was pushed by the younger brother next to him did he wake up. He immediately shouted, Guorping, I want this woman. I'll exchange 3 sluggish beasts for you. The silly little boy still hadn't spoken. The tall man next to him coldly said, Impossible, get out of the way, don't block the way. Damn, Guodapeng, you don't want face, do you? Brother Chang was giving you face by exchanging sluggish beasts for you. Since you won't trade, then don't blame us for being impolite. Guorping stood in front of Mu Yan and said eagerly, Big brother said that this is for little sister and grandma to eat, I can't give it to you. Brother Chang glared at them with his triangular eyes and laughed mockingly, fools who only know how to eat. How can I let you waste such a treasure? Looks like the lesson I gave you last time wasn't enough. How dare you talk back to me? Men, beat them up. If I don't beat these 2 idiot brothers until they're scared, I, Chang Jia, will write my name backwards. The people at the back shouted and immediately rushed forward excitedly. Guorping obviously did not have the slightest bit of combat power. In just a moment, he was beaten to the point of wailing. Guodapeng, on the other hand, had great strength. However, it was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Soon, he was beaten black and blue, and his body staggered. Chang Jia had already walked in front of Mu Yan with a smile. He stretched out his chicken claw-like hand and was about to touch Mu Yan's face. It's too wasteful to directly send such a top-grade beauty to the ghost fair to be sold. Why don't you let me enjoy it first? Before Chang Jia's hand could touch the young girl's soft skin, he was already met with a pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. A chill ran down his back for no reason, and his whole body couldn't help but shiver. But soon Chang Jia came to his senses. He was actually scared by a stinky woman who had lost the ability to resist. He immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and raised his dark and rough hand to slap Mu Yan's face. Chapter 31-32. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Smelly whore, you're just a woman, how dare you look at lousy like that? Who do you think you are? There's a slap, this slap is obviously not light. Chang Jia's underlings are teasing that their boss doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex, actually laying his hands on such a rare and exquisite beauty. The next moment, they see a figure heavily colliding towards them. The people who were beating up the Guo brothers only feel a huge force hitting them. Their whole body is knocked to the ground. Lousy is dying from the pain. Chang Jia clutched the side of his face that was swollen to the size of a pig's head and let out a muffled scream. He opens his mouth and spits out several bloody teeth. Everyone looks up, only to find that the girl lying on the stretcher has stood up at some point. Her body is still tied with ropes. The clothes on her body are stained with blood or mud, her hair is disheveled, looking battered and exhausted. But those peach blossom eyes are languid and disdainful, looking at Chang Jia like looking at an ant that can be crushed at any time. Damn smelly woman, you dare to hit me. Go, all of you go up. Dislocate her hands and feet, lousy must properly kill her later. Chang Jia's face is half swollen, his face distorted as he looks at Mu Yan. Smelly whore, very soon, you will know the consequences of offending me, young Master Chang. Hearing that, Chang Jia's underlings immediately rush over with fiendish expressions. Each of them has a ferocious and cruel look in their eyes. Although the muscles on their body can't be said to be strong, but each punch and each kick is extremely explosive. Facing the siege of so many strong men, the thin and weak girl is like a willow in the wind, as if she could be destroyed at any time. However, Mu Yan chuckles. Temporarily can't use spiritual power, mysterious power. Speaking as if she would lose in a competition of pure physical strength. She has a magic nucleus in her body. With the daily operation of the magic nucleus, her body has gradually been transformed into the world's most powerful devil body. Seeing that several people have rushed forward, Mu Yan exerts force on her feet, suddenly spinning her body and kicking sideways. Bang! A burly man was sent flying, and the bones in his body seemed to be cracking. He hits the ground and directly faints. Bang bang bang! After a few consecutive loud bangs, the arrogant smile on Chang Jia's face froze before it could disappear. He stared blankly at his subordinates who were lying on the ground, coughing up blood. It was unknown if they were dead or alive. She then looked at the beautiful girl who had not even untied her hands and was slowly walking towards her. A terrified expression appeared on his face as he screamed, Don't come over. Don't come any closer. He fumbled around his waist in a panic and pulled out a sharp knife that shone with a white light. Ha! Ha ha ha, damned bitch, how could I forget? I have a weapon made from demon bone. Since your hands are tied, killing you is as easy as flipping my palm. Saying that, Chang Jia waved the knife in his hand and stabbed it towards Mayan's open abdomen. The moment the sharp knife was brandished, Mu Yan felt a strange energy fluctuation. But when he tried to sense it carefully, he couldn't feel anything. The dagger was clearly flashing with a faint fluorescent light, but in her divine sense, it felt empty. Bitch, go to hell. Ha ha ha. Chang Jie's knife stopped in midair. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 31-33. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Chang Jie's wrist is caught by a slender hand that's as white as jade. The fingers that seem to be carved out of white jade, with a slight coolness, clasps his wrist, making him unable to move. Chang Jie raises his head in horror. When did this woman break free? His face reddens, and he desperately wants to stab forward with the knife. But his hand doesn't move. There's a cracking sound coming from the bones of his hand. Aw aw aw. Chang Jie lets out a mournful scream, and helplessly watches as his arm is directly broken by those slender fingers. It's bent into a beautiful angle, and slowly stabs towards his throat. No, 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 you can't kill me. Chang Jie's eyes widen in horror, and he screams hysterically, my father is the steward of the Ghost Fair, and my uncle is an outer disciple of the Mountain Split sect. If you kill me, my father and uncle will never let you off. Mountain Split sect. What kind of sect is this? Mu Yan's gesture pauses. Chang Jie shows an expression of relief, and he's both resentful and proud in his heart. He thinks to himself, you stinking woman dare to offend me like this. When you fall into my hands, I'll make you beg for death. Puchi. Chang Jie is imagining a beautiful future. Suddenly, he sees a line of blood shooting out in front of his eyes. He widens his eyes in disbelief, and slowly lowers his head. He sees that the entire demon bone knife has entered his throat. Crack, crack, crack. How can this be? How can he die in this place? Who is this woman? How could she dare to kill him? Mu Yan moves her wrists that are numb from being tied up. She slowly steps forward and pulls out the knife from Chang Jie's throat. She takes a look at it. It's really strange. It clearly doesn't have any spiritual power attribute, but it seems to contain a powerful force. Moreover, Mu Yan feels that the natal sword in her body is restless. It seems that there's some strange energy on the knife that's attracting the seven absolute sword to swallow and absorb it. Mu Yan turns to look at the Guo brothers, the only two who are still alive. This knife, she hasn't finished speaking. Guo Depeng had already pulled his brother to his knees and begged, heroine, please spare my life. It was us brothers who had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended you, heroine. Please be magnanimous and spare my younger brother Erping. As long as you are willing to spare my brother, you can do whatever you want with my lowly life. Don't. Guo Erping was so anxious that he burst into tears and snot. If you want to eat me, don't eat my big brother. Big brother still needs to find food for little sister and grandma. Erpeng is useless, so you eat Erpeng. Mu Yan rolls her eyes. You're so skinny that you look like a bag of bones. I'm not afraid of burping my teeth when I eat you. Shut up. Answer whatever I ask. If you dare to spout another word of nonsense, you can go and accompany these people. Guo Depeng was stunned. Only then did he realize that the girl didn't seem to want to kill them immediately. He calmed down and quickly said, heroine, please ask. I will definitely tell you everything I know. Mu Yan glanced around and said in a heavy voice, what is this place? Guo Depeng was somewhat stumped by the question. After a long while, he cautiously said, this is Gravel Hill, heroine, you don't know? Mu Yan frowns, where is Gravel Hill? Guo Depeng is even more stunned. How can he answer this? Gravel. Gravel Hill is the outermost area of the floating island. Generally, there are only useless people with no talent for cultivation. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 31-34. Mu Yan can no longer hear the rest of Guo Depeng's words. There were only 3 words in her mind. Floating island. This is a floating island. How did she end up on the floating island? Yes. Mu Yan suddenly remembers when she thought that she was about to be struck to death by the heavenly thunder of God's punishment. The little chick suddenly rolled out and bumped into her. Then, the special reward from the Tianguang ruins, the flickering light jade key, dropped out. So, it was the floating light jade key that saved her, but instead of sending her to the cultivation continent, it sent her to the sky floating island. The current Mu Yan was no stranger to the floating island. 4th senior sister Leng Yuma's mother should have been sent to the floating island's soul nurturing pool to recuperate. Eldest senior brother, little 7, and the others were hunted down by the Lan family empire of the floating island, which was why they finally escaped to the floating island. Her mother, Ning Yanxin, had been taken away from the cultivation continent, and her final destination should be this floating island. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, her expression fluctuating. Guo Depeng was so scared that he didn't even dare to breathe. Seeing that his younger brother Guo Erping was about to raise his head to speak, he hurriedly pressed him down. After a long while, Mayan says again, "Tell me in detail about the situation of the floating island and the gravel hill." Guo Depeng was even more puzzled. This powerful and shockingly beautiful girl in front of him seemed to know nothing about common sense. Where did she come from? However, even if Guo Depeng was given 100 guts, he would not dare to ask such a question. He just lowered his head and said all the information he knew while trembling with fear. Hearing Guo Depeng's description, Mu Yan was a little disappointed. This was because Guo Depeng didn't know much. He had been born on this gravel hill. This gravel hill was located in the most remote part of the floating island. Many years ago, for some reason, the spirit chi and immortal chi in the rocky hill dried up overnight. Moreover, it formed a natural barrier, isolating the gravel mound from the rest of the floating island. This was a place where one could only enter and not leave. Every once in a while, there would always be those who had nowhere else to go, or those who had abandoned their cultivation, who were forced to enter this place. However, these outsiders usually could not adapt to life in the rocky hills. In the end, he either went crazy or committed suicide. The people in the rocky mound were born here and died here. They would never be able to escape from this barren land. Moreover, the resources here were extremely scarce. Not to mention spirit stones for cultivation, even something as simple as having enough to eat and wear warm clothes was a luxury for them. Mu Yan looks at the two again. Guo Erping was already 12 years old, but he was dark and skinny. At first glance, one would think that he was only 7 or 8 years old. Guo Depeng was tall, but his entire body was sallow and emaciated. It was obvious that he had not been receiving nutrition for a long time. When Xiuzhe reached the stage of fasting, they could use Ling power to temper their bodies, and only needed to eat a small amount of food. But the Guo brothers in front of him were obviously ordinary people. What do you usually eat? Yes. Sometimes I go to the trash mountain to search. Garbage Mountain, as the name suggested, was a real mountain of garbage. It was right next to the boundary between the boulder mound and the floating island. It was filled with garbage thrown from the floating island. Most of the garbage was useless and polluted waste. However, there were also a small number of magic treasure fragments and an even smaller amount of food. Every day, there would be countless people rummaging through the pile of trash in the gravel hill. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.